Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 91 to 91. See the Heritage. 91. See the Heritage. Divine Armament Seal, Solid Crocodile Leather Armor. Effect 2, increases the wearer's upper body defense by 3 points. Effect 3, Self-Recovery, able to slowly recover durability. Set equipment attribute activated, 1/3. Divine Armament Seal, Solid Crocodile Skin Boots. Effect 1, increases the wearer's agility by 3 points. Effect 2, increases the wearer's foot defense by 3 points. Divine Soldier Seal, Hard Crocodile Helmet. Effect 1, increases the wearer's strength by 2 points. Effect 2, increases the head defense of the wearer by 4 points. Effect 3, Crocodile Guard, passive skill, can be triggered once a day. Grants immunity to mental attacks to a certain extent. These were 3 of the items that Wu Wei was satisfied with. Wu Wei had not expected that they would be able to gather a complete set of runic equipment in this wave of attacks. Furthermore, it was a complete set of equipment. After Wu Wei drove it out, he asked Ah Huang to change into it. When Ah Huang put on the entire set, the change in his attributes was really earth-shaking. Strength, 7.4, Vitality 7.5, Agility 2.1, Spiritual Energy 100. These were the current attributes of Ah Huang. This was only the crocodile set with 1 divine weapon talisman, the yellow turban and iron horn talisman, and not the water disaster blade. If Huang equipped the water blade, it would increase his strength and constitution by another 2 points. In other words, when Ah Huang was fully equipped, his strength could reach 13.4, his physique could reach 12.5, and his agility could reach 5.1. He didn't need to look at anything else. Just by looking at the attributes, he could tell how big Yellow's improvement was. In addition, after the 3 pieces of equipment were equipped, the Gator set attributes were activated. There was an additional set effect, Crocodile Disguise. Crocodile Camouflage, active set effect. When activated, it can disguise one's own figure, allowing one to blend in with the environment and reduce one's sense of existence to the greatest extent. P.S. This skill can display its greatest effect in the swamp quagmire. VSS, when used normally, movement speed over 3 meters per second may result in violence. Please do not attack while in disguise, as that will expose your existence. This effect could only be said to be very ordinary. However, when Wu Wei thought about what he was going to do next, he immediately felt that the suit's effect was quite good. Other than the 3-piece set, Wu Wei was most satisfied with the light blue dot left behind by the big-headed crocodile. The blue dot of light was also a divine armament seal, and it was one that Wu Wei urgently needed. Divine weapon seal, Earth Staff. Rarity, Superior. Level, 19. Usage requirements, rules. Effect 1, increase the user's spirit by 5 points. Effect 2, increases the user's skill casting speed and skill effect by 20%, only effective on skills with 3 stars and below. Effect 3, legacy of the meditation spell Heart of the Earth, 1000 talismans will be consumed to activate the legacy. To Wu Wei, the most important point of this divine armament seal was the 3rd. Ever since he found out that the 3rd condition for a sprite's grade upgrade was 1-star meditation, Wu Wei had been paying attention to this news. And there was no news. Wu Wei also knew what meditation was. This was the core skill of the magic profession. It could increase the spiritual power of the magic profession and strengthen the magic skills. If a mage wanted to advance to 3-star, they had to learn the corresponding meditation spell. There were 2 main ways to learn meditation. One of them was going to the academy. The academy had mastered some meditation spells. As long as one was a student, they could only learn them after passing the assessment. However, most of the assessments required students to reach Tier 2 before they could come into contact with it. Moreover, they were all targeted at magical jobs. Thus, Wu Wei knew from the start that this method would not work. He could only see if he could use his contribution points to exchange for items through the logistics department. Of course, the logistics department did indeed have such things. But the price? To put it this way, Wu Wei had almost given up after a single glance. It would cost at least 300 contribution points, and it was just the most common meditation spell without any attributes. Moreover, it was only the initial investment. Other investments would be needed in the future. Basically, it was impossible to learn a meditation spell without 400 to 500 contribution points. The staff's attributes had saved Wu Wei 300 contribution points. No, this meditation spell with attributes might be more expensive, but he had saved at least 400 to 500 contribution points. More importantly, the staff could be used repeatedly. Wu Wei felt that he would be able to sell this toy for at least 1,000 contribution points if he waited until he ran out of little sprites. Well, at that time, I can give. Wait, what are you doing? Quickly shut up. While Wu Wei was still thinking about what he would do after earning over 1,000 contribution points, the little elf had already picked up the staff and stuffed it into her mouth. This scene made Wu Wei's hair stand on end, and he quickly rushed over to snatch the staff from the little fairy's mouth. Gee, it smells nice. The little elf wants to eat it? The little fairy, whose food had been snatched away from her mouth, looked at the staff that was still stained with her saliva and felt wronged. Before Wu Wei could teach her a lesson, she started crying. Wu Wei wasn't afraid of this little fellow crying. After all, this little elf was using crying as a weapon. He cried 3 times a day and would start crying whenever he was unhappy. However, when Wu Wei snatched the staff back, he suddenly realized that the wisp seemed to be able to eat equipment. Moreover, it seemed that eating equipment was very beneficial to her. Then, here came the problem. If the little elf ate the staff, would it be able to directly learn the meditation spell Heart of the Earth? If it was possible, of course, it was more than 1,000 contribution points for a skill. Wu Wei's heart ached a little, but it was not a happy ending. He could only reluctantly accept it. But what if it didn't? If this did not work, Wu Wei would not be able to accept it. Thus, Wu Wei hardened his heart and shook his head. No, you can't eat this, at least not now. If he really wanted to eat it, he would have to wait until the little fairy had truly mastered Heart of the Earth. After that, Wu Wei called for the staff from the logistics department. Other than the 3-piece set that Huang was wearing, the earth staff, and the items that he had left behind for the little fairy, he had obtained a total of 278 hearts from the collection and the light spots. The remaining Wu Wei were all sold. Wu Wei, this is the list of items you sold to the logistics department. Please take a look. In total, there were 220 high-quality crocodile hearts, 280 high-quality crocodile skins, 30 high-quality crocodile brains, and 48 high-quality divine soldier talismans. 76 pieces of exquisite quality crocodile skin, 12 pieces of exquisite quality rune earth armor. Among them, the high-quality crocodile materials were 4 pieces each for 1 contribution point, which was a total of 132.5 contribution points. 48 high-quality divine armament talismans, worth 3 to 15 contribution points, a total of 336 contribution points. An exquisite grade crocodile heart was worth 2 contribution points, so he had a total of 152 points. Each exquisite grade rune earth armor cost 10 contribution points, so he had a total of 120 contribution points. The total is 740.5 contribution points. This is the list, please confirm. Looking at the list handed over by the staff lady in front of him, Wu Wei felt like he was a rich man for a moment. With the 740 contribution points here and the remaining 120 contribution points he had spent over the past few days, Wu Wei's personal wealth had reached 860 contribution points. If this was converted into talismans, it would be 86,000 points. If this was converted into money, how shocking would that amount be? It would probably be enough to live for several lifetimes. Of course, Wu Wei was only fantasizing. In fact, there was basically no divine talisman master who would exchange spiritual talismans for money. For a divine talisman master, money was just a number, and spiritual talismans were the real important resources. But then again, it was also because the spiritual talismans of the divine talisman world were rarely circulated in the real world, which resulted in the phenomenon of 10,000 yuan per talisman. If a divine talisman master really exchanged a large number of spiritual talismans, then spiritual talismans would probably be worthless in the real world. Of course, whether it was valuable or not was secondary. If someone really did it, it would not be far from GG. He was blatantly trampling on the rules of the divine talisman masters of the Great Han Dynasty and selling large amounts of items from the divine talisman world. Did he really think that the Great Han Dynasty could not lift a saber? Wu Wei shook his head to get rid of the messy thoughts and handed over the list. No problem. Transfer 500 of the contribution points to my account and exchange the rest for talismans. Chapter 92-92 Receiving the Inheritance. 92 Receiving the Inheritance. After exchanging his earnings for contribution points and taking the 24,500 talismans, he didn't return to his dormitory immediately. Instead, he started working in the resting room of the logistics department. Wu Wei was busy with the Earth Staff's Heart of Earth inheritance. Even though Wu Wei was very happy to have obtained this item, his knowledge told him that it wouldn't be easy to pass it down. Of course, if someone were to ask Wu Wei what knowledge he had, he would tell them that it was the Divine Weapon Talisman lesson for the first-year students of Yuehua Academy, the knowledge of the Divine Weapon Talisman skill inheritance. It was recorded in detail that the inheritance of this Divine Weapon rune could be roughly divided into two types. An inheritance that could only be used once and an inheritance that could be used multiple times. The so-called one-time use inheritance, as its name suggested, was an inheritance that could only be used once. The disadvantage of this inheritance method was that the inheritance function of the Divine Armament Seal would be gone after being used. The advantage was that it could definitely hit the target with one strike without any mistakes. Correspondingly, for example, the Earth Staff that Wu Wei had obtained could be inherited multiple times. Although it could be used repeatedly, the success rate of such a Divine Weapon Seal inheritance was very low. For such a Divine Armament Talisman, not to mention one hit, being able to hit 10 times would be the kind of ancestor's grave to burn incense. As such, even though Wu Wei had exchanged over 20,000 spirit talismans, he wasn't sure if he could help Little Elf obtain the Heart of the Earth. Ah Huang, please bless me. I hope that I can hit it once. As he spoke, Wu Wei handed the staff and 1,000 talismans to the little fairy. At the same time, he gave her an encouraging look. Come on. With Wu Wei's command, Wisp activated the skill inheritance of Earth Staff. In the blink of an eye, all 1,000 talismans were gone. Then, the little fairy's body was enveloped in a faint cocky light. This scene made Wu Wei's heart bleed. Although he had some money in his pocket now, it was all hard-earned. Moreover, this was probably the only opportunity to make money in a short period of time. It would be impossible to earn that much in a few days. How could Wu Wei not feel heartache when he burned all the money he had earned in a day? What made Wu Wei's heartache even more was that the yellow light on the little fairy's body quickly disappeared. At the same time, Wu Wei received two pieces of news. One was bad news. The little fairy's inheritance this time did not succeed. There was also bad news. 1/50th appeared in front of Wu Wei. According to his understanding of his cheat, 50 should be the number of times. In other words, Wu Wei would have to spend at least 50,000 talismans, which was 500 contribution points in order for the little guy to obtain the meditation technique inheritance. In this wave, more than half of the contribution points that Wu Wei had just obtained were gone. Wu Wei's heart was bleeding. Well, maybe this progress bar is the same as runic magic basics. It doesn't come in one try. Maybe it will jump to 50 on the second try. Wu Wei said some nonsense that even he himself didn't quite believe as he silently prayed in his heart. I'll pay the price of being single for 50 years for Blondie. I pray that the little elf can hit the target on the second try. Wu Wei's method of snatching other people's money was very brutal. However, it was ineffective. The little elf failed again the second time, but the progress bar went to 2. Seeing this, Wu Wei gave up struggling. 500 it is then. No matter what, I profited from this. Then, under Wu Wei's pained gaze, the little elf used her inheritance again and again. 1,000 spiritual talismans at once, 1,000 spiritual talismans at once. Very quickly, the 20,004 spirit talismans that Wu Wei had exchanged were used up. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and exchange for another 30,000. The reason why he exchanged for more was to save some for future formations. As Wei Wu's spiritual talismans and pills were replenished, the little elf had completed 50 consecutive attacks. After the 50th inheritance, the light around the little elf's body started to change. Not only did it become exceptionally bright, but there seemed to be a spot of light on the little fairy's forehead. Your second origin summoned beast Earth Fairy has successfully obtained the inheritance of the meditation spell Heart of the Earth. Your little elf has obtained the inheritance of the meditation spell Heart of the Earth. She has successfully mastered the meditation spell Heart of the Earth and her spirit has increased by 3 points. Your little elf has successfully mastered the meditation spell Heart of the Earth. It has received a 10% bonus to Earth-type skills. A few lines of words appeared one after another, as well as the light shining from the little fairy's body. Wu Wei realized that the little fairy had gained a lot this time. But at the same time, Wu Wei also noticed that the wisp's income seemed to be limited. He didn't know if it was his intuition or if spending 500 contribution points made Wu Wei's heart ache, but he felt that the little fairy should have gained more. Maybe it's because this little guy hasn't evolved yet. As he spoke, Wu Wei opened up the little elf's attributes and saw the skill that the little fellow had just obtained. Heart of the Earth, 1/100. Classification, Meditation. Description, able to increase the spirit attribute of a little spirit, as well as other incredible effects. Looking at the simple introduction, Wu Wei couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He felt that the introduction was a little boring. Of course, the main reason was that he felt the heartache of spending 500 contribution points in one go. When this item dropped, Wu Wei thought that he had saved a few hundred contribution points. He didn't expect that he would still have to spend it in the end, and it was so much. What made Wu Wei's heart ache even more was that the sprites could still be eaten. In that case, the divine weapon seal's final fate would not be to sell it, but to be eaten by the little fairy. This meant that Wu Wei had finally obtained an outstanding divine weapon. Not only would he not gain anything, but he would also lose more than 1,500 contribution points. How could Wu Wei take it? No, I can't lose money like this. I have to think of a way to earn some money from it. What Wu Wei was talking about was the inheritance function of this divine weapon seal. I wonder if its inheritance function can be used on others. If possible, can I have the opportunity to sell the legacy function? 1,500 talismans for a random draw, and 600 contribution points for a sure hit. Wu Wei was also considered a business genius, and he actually managed to think of a way to earn money. As he said that, he asked the little fairy to try and see if he could use it. After receiving a confirmation from the wisp that he could use it, Wu Wei's eyes narrowed and he gritted his teeth. Then try using it on me. The little elf waved her staff and was about to hit Wu Wei. Even though he knew that it was useless to pray, Wu Wei still put his palms together and prayed with his eyes closed. Ah Huang, please bless me. This time, I'm willing to use my 5 years of being single to exchange for a chance in my life. After praying, Wu Wei waved his hand at the little fairy. All right, you do it. The little fairy didn't come over immediately. It felt that Wu Wei's actions were quite interesting, so it also came over to Ah Huang. Gigi. Ah Huang, please bless Wu Wei. He will be single for life. Then, the little fairy waved her staff at Wu Wei. Then, Wu Wei's head lit up. Chapter 93 to 93 Earth Elemental Core. 93 Earth Elemental Core. You have obtained the inheritance condition of the meditation spell Heart of the Earth. You will receive the inheritance after completing one meditation. This line of words appeared in front of Wu Wei's eyes. At the same time, a huge amount of information gushed into Wu Wei's mind. This piece of information made Wu Wei's head buzz. After a while, Wu Wei finally realized what had happened. Simply put, his current situation was similar to when he obtained the yellow turban iron bull stance. It could be considered that he had obtained the inheritance of the meditation technique, but not the complete inheritance. Wu Wei had to learn it by himself. However, even though he did not receive the inheritance directly, it was not bad to get such a reward with 10 contribution points. However, when Wu Wei thought about how he might have obtained this by being single for his entire life, he felt his teeth itch. Without a word, he grabbed the little fairy and gave her a good beating. I said it's only 5 years, why did you add it to a lifetime? What if I can't find a partner for the rest of my life? The little elf who was being beaten didn't panic at all. Instead, she was very curious about some knowledge. Gigi. What do you mean single? What was a partner? What can a partner do? Is it good? Wu Wei was taken aback. That's right, what's the partner? Was it important? Did it smell good or was it soft to hug? Was it more important than skills? I don't think so. He heard that it was quite troublesome. If he was not careful, he would get angry. What was more terrifying was that sometimes he would even leak air. Thinking about it this way, it seemed that skills were still better. Then it's fine. Wu Wei, who was enlightened, threw the little elf to the side and started to study Heart of the Earth. Perhaps it was due to his experience in studying runes formations, but it was easy for Wu Wei to pick up this skill. Very quickly, Wu Wei noticed that the Heart of the Earth skill seemed to be quite simple compared to Ah Wang's yellow turban iron bull stance. As a meditation skill, the training of this skill was no different from other meditation skills. They all focused on meditation. The purpose was to use spirit energy to construct a Heart of the Earth in his mind. Let me see. To complete the meditation, I need to absorb spiritual chi of the earth attribute. The heart of the crocodile should be able to absorb spiritual chi of the earth attribute. Yes, I'll try. Little guy, come over here. Well, Wu Wei wasn't referring to him trying it out. After all, he had yet to reach the beginner level, and he only had the relevant information in his mind. If he wanted to try it out, it would be more convenient to use the little spirit, which had already obtained a skill inheritance. After receiving Wu Wei's call, the little fairy flapped her little wings and came over. At the same time, her doubts followed. Gigi. Wu Wei, Wu Wei. What's a partner? Why haven't you passed this page yet? Wu Wei's mouth twitched as he casually replied, my partner is the person who eats with me, lives with me, and sleeps with me. The little fairy's eyes lit up when she heard this. Gigi. The little fairy and Wu Wei eat together, live together, and sleep together. Is the little fairy Wu Wei's partner? Wu Wei almost choked on his saliva. What was this little guy thinking? Gigi, Why? Didn't we eat, live, and sleep together? There's no reason. If I say it's not, it's not. Here, take this and show me the heart of the earth. As Wu Wei spoke, he handed over a high-quality crocodile heart rune to the little fairy. The little fairy took the rune and took a bite. At the same time, she asked curiously, Gigi, is Ah Huang Wu Wei's partner? Wu Wei patted the little fellow's little bottom. Don't ask any more, hurry up and practice. Under Wu Wei's constant urging, the little fairy finally started to use Heart of the Earth and entered a meditative state. Wu Wei watched from the side as the wisp entered a meditative state, and her 10-minute proficiency jumped from 0/100 to 1/100. 1 hour in 10 minutes, so 100 points seemed to take 1000 minutes, about 16 or 17 hours. Just as Wu Wei was feeling happy, he noticed that the heart rune in the little fellow's hand had dimmed. After a while, the fairy opened her eyes, and the rune in her hand disappeared. It seems that the 1-point proficiency in 10 minutes also has a part to do with the heart. In other words, if he wanted to increase the Heart of Earth meditation skill to 1 star within 16 to 17 hours, Wu Wei might need to pay 100 fine-grade crocodile hearts. This thing could be sold for at least 1 contribution point, and the highest could even be sold for 2 to 3 contribution points. In other words, it would be at least a few hundred contribution points. Fortunately, Wu Wei had stock on hand and did not need to fork out money to buy it. However, even though he did not need to buy a fine-grade heart, Wu Wei still did not have over 300 contribution points left. In the end, Wu Wei spent all his contribution points and bought a superior grade Earth Attribute Energy Core for the little fairy. Item, Earth Elemental Core. Price, 310 contribution points. It was the energy core that Wu Wei had bought. For this energy core, Wu Wei had basically used up all the remaining contribution points in his pocket. Not long ago, he still had 860 contribution points. Now, he only had 45 contribution points and 4,500 talismans left in his pocket. The reason why Wu Wei gritted his teeth and bought this energy core was because he wanted to give the little elf a better one. Or rather, he had high hopes for the little wisp's upgrade this time. Although he already had a goal to kill the Gator King in the Gator Swamp, he had long regarded the heart of the Gator King as his own. As for the heart, its earth attribute wasn't particularly pure. After all, the crocodile was still a crocodile. No matter how pure its attribute was, it couldn't be purer than the earth elemental spirit. The earth element was the heart of the highest quality that Wu Wei had found from the logistics department. Also, Wu Wei was afraid that there would not be enough sprites if there was only one heart. He had already eaten more than 50 fine-grade heart sprites, which was twice the number of 20. Wu Wei felt that one superior grade energy core might not be enough for the heart sprites. That was why Wu Wei had invested so much. Now that he had spent the money, the Earth Elemental Fairy's energy core was in his hands. It could be said that everything was ready. The only thing he lacked now was the little elf's Heart of the Earth to be upgraded to 1 star. As soon as the little fairy raised Heart of the Earth to 1 star, Wu Wei would immediately go and kill the Gator King. At that time, the little elf would first eat the Earth Elemental Elf Core. If it couldn't eat it, it would directly level up. If it could eat more, it would eat the Gator King's heart as well. After planning the next upgrade for the little spirit, Wu Wei waved his hand and said, "Let's go home and cultivate." Chapter 94 to 94 Learn Talisman Making Basics. 94 Learn Talisman Making Basics. After returning to the dormitory, Wu Wei poured out 99 fine-grade crocodile hearts and threw the little elf in. He then called Ah Huang over and told him to practice the yellow turban iron bull stance while watching the little elf practice. That's right, let Ah Huang supervise the little fairy. He had no choice, this little guy was too naughty. It was impossible for her to stay there for more than 10 hours without anyone watching her. Since Wu Wei had to study the heart of Earth, He had no choice but to let Ah Huang look after the little guy. In the beginning, Wu Wei was still a little worried about whether Ah Huang could keep an eye on the little fellow. After all, that little fellow was extremely naughty, and Wu Wei sometimes couldn't even control it. Therefore, he sneaked over to take a look a few times. To Wu Wei's surprise, Ah Huang was doing well. The little elf was very honest and was cultivating very seriously. She did not play any tricks at all. That posture was even more serious than Wu Wei staring at himself. This made Wu Wei feel that it was unbelievable. He had no idea how Ah Huang had done it. When he saw the little fairy open her eyes, Ah Huang immediately went up to her and asked about her well-being. Ask the little fairy if she's tired. Let the little spirit rest when it's tired. This kind of cultivation is something that only very powerful little spirits can endure. If the little spirit isn't that powerful, then don't force yourself. In any case, the little fairy was already the most powerful little fairy in Ah Huang's heart. As soon as the little fairy heard this, she immediately patted her flat chest to express that she was the most powerful little fairy. She could be even more powerful, and she could continue to cultivate. No one could stop her. Then, he closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. Wu Wei was dumbfounded by this scene. This was the first time he had discovered that Ah Huang, who had a simple and honest face, thick eyebrows, and big eyes, was actually such a yellow-scarfed strongman. This made Wu Wei unable to look straight at Ah Huang's seemingly simple and honest face. However, this also made Wu Wei feel completely at ease. Although the little elf was mischievous, with her intelligence, Ah Huang could probably trick her into practicing until she died if he wanted to. Ignoring the little fairy, Wu Wei started to focus on studying the heart of the earth. Well, it had to be said that Wu Wei realized that he was actually quite greedy. Now, he had reached a certain level in the yellow turban iron bull stance, basic archery, and rune formation. From now on, no matter which direction he developed in, his future would be extremely bright. However, he still wasn't satisfied, and he wanted another heart of the earth. However, he was actually being stingy. He felt that it would be a waste to leave his spiritual energy at 5.3, which was higher than the other attributes. Moreover, he had spent 500 contribution points on the heart of the earth sprite, so he had a chance of getting 10 contribution points. Wouldn't he be a bastard if he didn't take advantage of this? Could he be the bastard? I can't, okay. But very quickly, Wu Wei realized that it was a little difficult not to deal with this bastard. Just like the yellow turban iron bull stance, Wu Wei also encountered some difficulties in learning Heart of the Earth. To get started on Heart of the Earth, one needed to construct the outline of the Heart of the Earth in the spiritual world. This Wu Wei was very clueless. Even though he had entered the spiritual world under the guidance of a meditation technique, he had no idea how to construct the outline of the Heart of the Earth. Even though there were not many nodes to build for the beginner level, it was enough to stop Wu Wei, who was an outsider. What made Wu Wei want to vomit blood was that unlike the yellow turban iron bull stance, the Heart of the Earth was a test of talent. It required one to understand it before one could master it. It was not like the yellow turban iron bull stance, which could not be repeatedly tested. This was very torturous. Wu Wei was busy for a long time, but he had no idea. Could it be that this thing has no fate with me? In fact, Wu Wei had also suffered a loss because of his unsuitable profession. If he was a divine talisman mage, he would have taken professional meditation classes. Although the meditation class didn't teach meditation, they started from the basics. With the foundation, it was much easier to get started. However, even though he had no foundation, his situation was not completely hopeless. Just as Wu Wei's eyes were about to go blind, his eyes shot through the window and saw a book not far away. When he saw the pile of books, Wu Wei's eyes suddenly lit up. Come to think of it, the construction of the mental node seems to be similar to the construction of a spiritual talisman? Can I get some inspiration from there? The more Wu Wei thought about it, the more he felt that this idea was feasible. As such, he picked up the talisman making basics that he hadn't touched in a long time. The talisman making basics was about a quarter as thick as the talisman formation basics. Although it was only a quarter, it was still very shocking. However, Wu Wei did not seem to be struggling. This was all thanks to Wu Wei's mastery of talisman formation basics. From a certain point of view, the three skills of a talisman making, formations, and props were actually the same. The knowledge points of the three skills, especially in the basics, had a large overlap. When Wu Wei grasped the talisman formation basics and looked at the talisman making basics in reverse, it was much easier. After about 5 hours, Wu Wei finished reading the talisman making basics. The words 13/100 appeared before his eyes. Wu Wei only glanced at it briefly before focusing on talisman making basics. To be exact, it was about talisman making, mental nodes, and rune nodes. After looking through it once, Wu Wei's side still had some gains. However, because the talisman making basics book in his hands was only the most basic book, Wu Wei had many problems other than gains. With Wu Wei's knowledge, it was basically impossible for him to solve these problems on his own, and it would take too much time to look up information. In this situation, Wu Wei recalled the senior named Zhongli that he had met half a month ago. He looked at the time. It was just past 9 in the evening. Wu Wei quickly got to work. He sorted out his questions and found Zhongli's phone number. He called her. "What is it?" The other party quickly picked up Wu Wei's call, his voice cold. But Wu Wei did not care about this at all. He directly threw over the question he had prepared: if the rune nodes can't land on the paper, how should they be located? If he couldn't draw the entire rune in one go, could he draw the rune nodes one by one? How did the rune nodes affect each other? In a single breath, Wu Wei threw out more than a dozen questions, and it took him nearly 10 minutes just to talk about the questions. 10 minutes later, after Wu Wei had finished throwing out his questions, the other party spoke. "The questions you asked are very childish, and it makes me wonder if you've been reading the books I gave you in the past half a month. But since you can ask these questions, it means that you've thought about it seriously. So, I'll make an exception today. Don't ask me such an idiotic and childish question next time." Wu Wei wasn't sure if it was his imagination, but he felt that the voice on the other end seemed to have some warmth after he asked the series of questions. But soon, Wu Wei had no time to pay attention to it. The first problem is that the rune nodes can't fall on the paper. This problem isn't at this stage. However, if the rune nodes couldn't land on the paper, you could try to land on a flat surface according to the object you wanted to land on and your level. If you want to expand it, you can expand it from this plane, and you can do this. Wait a minute, I'll take notes. You may continue. Zhongli's tone became warmer when she heard the sound of writing, but it was still not warm. In the following time, Zhongli patiently explained to Wu Wei for 3 to 4 hours in a slightly cold tone. Apart from solving the dozen or so problems that Wu Wei had, he also helped Wu Wei sort out his talisman making basics knowledge. Sometimes, having a good teacher was really a very happy thing. Although Zhongli's tone was a little cold, she was undoubtedly a very good teacher. The content of her lecture was profound but simple, so even if Wu Wei's foundation was weak, it didn't affect him. After 3 to 4 hours of lessons, Wu Wei's proficiency, which was originally at 12/100, had soared to 100/100. You have successfully learned talisman making basics. You can now try to draw runes below level 10. Wu Wei had once again initiated a new subject. Although he did not have the knowledge of formation skills like talisman formation art, Wu Wei was already very satisfied with the results. Chapter 95 to 95 Consecutive Breakthroughs. 95 consecutive breakthroughs. Let's call it a night. I'll be a little busy for the next few days, so don't call me again. If you don't have anything to do these few days, put more effort into this. By the way, did you record everything I said just now? If not, I'll make a recording and send you a copy later. You can digest it in the next few days. When the professor is done, I'll inform you to come and see her. If you want to continue down the path of a talisman master, you'll have to perform well then. In dormitory B2B. After Zhang Li's lecture, she calmly gave Wu Wei her final instructions. Then, just like the last time, he hung up without waiting for Wu Wei's reply. Wu Wei listened to the beeping sound from his phone, but he didn't think Zhang Li was impolite. From these two encounters, Wu Wei had a rough impression of Zhang Li. This should be a simple, capable girl who didn't like complicated social interactions. Wu Wei was more than happy to get to know such a girl. Well, especially since she was so good at helping him increase his skill proficiency. Wu Wei estimated that if she took a few more lessons like this, he might have a chance of raising talisman crafting basics to a 1-star. I wonder if the senior knows anything about talisman? Well, it would be great if I could also understand how to make props. Then, Wu Wei shook his head and cast aside the extravagant hope of getting 3 skills from a single person. He focused his attention on the meditation skill Heart of Earth again. At this moment, Wu Wei realized something. The Heart of Earth that he couldn't get started with before was suddenly a solution. Originally, the most difficult part of Heart of the Earth was to construct the bottom spiritual nodes of the Heart of the Earth in the spiritual world. He would need about 13. Wu Wei had never been able to figure out how to construct it. Now, he followed the method that Zhang Li had taught him and marked the locations of the 13 mental nodes on a plane. Then, he expanded the 13 mental nodes on the plane bit by bit. When the 13 mental nodes were fully unfolded and connected with a thread, Wu Wei got a small heart. Of course, this was just a thought in Wu Wei's mind. The next thing he had to do was to copy the thought process in his mind in the spiritual world. Wu Wei had originally thought that this would be a difficult task. After all, he wasn't a divine talisman mage. It would be very difficult for him to learn the core skills of a divine talisman summoner. Even if he had talisman crafting basics as his foundation, Zhang Li's guidance, and a comprehensive plan, Wu Wei felt that he would need at least a few days to replicate that small heart. However, what Wu Wei did not expect was that when he entered the spiritual world again and began to guide his spiritual energy to construct the spiritual nodes bit by bit, he realized that everything was much easier than he had thought. Wu Wei completed the construction of 13 mental nodes almost effortlessly. Then, with the nourishment of his mental energy, lines began to appear on their own. Soon, the 13 mental nodes were connected, and Wu Wei's originally small and dark mental space began to emit an earthy yellow light. At the same time, a notification from the gold finger appeared before Wu Wei's eyes. You have successfully learned the meditation spell Heart of the Earth. Your spiritual energy has increased by 1.5. You have successfully condensed Heart of the Earth. The consumption of your Earth-type skills has been reduced by 5%. The upgraded skill and the additional effects were nothing compared to the little fairy. However, Wu Wei was already used to this. From the dark yellow turban iron bowl stance, Wu Wei knew that the same skill would have different effects when he cultivated it and when he cultivated it himself. Although the difference in the yellow turban iron bowl stance was not as obvious and ridiculous as the little elf's, on second thought, this was a magic profession after all. The threshold was high, so it was normal for it to be a little ridiculous. Thus, Wu Wei was quite open-minded. It's already good to have such an increase. Next, I can also think of a way to find some Earth attribute magic skills to learn. The Earth escape technique is not bad. At this point, Wu Wei immediately thought of the Earth burrow technique. Its escaping effect was first class. Just as Wu Wei was thinking of running for his life, 2 more notifications from his cheat appeared before his eyes. The skill of your first origin rune summoning beast, Yellow Turban Iron Bull Stance, has been upgraded. The current level is 2 stars. Your first runic summoning beast, Yellow Strength, and Constitution have increased by 3 points. Your second source rune summoned beast, Earth Fairy's meditation skill Heart of the Earth has been upgraded. Current level, 1 star. Your second source talisman summoner Sprite Spirit has increased by 4 points, and the effect of Earth attribute skills has increased by 15%. Looking at these golden finger notifications, the corners of Wu Wei's mouth curled up slightly. The skills of the two fellows at home, one big and one small, had broken through. There was no need to mention Ah Huang. With this breakthrough, its strength and vitality both broke through 10. With the addition of his equipment, his strength and physique could reach 16 points. With the 5 points of enhancement from his spirit chi state, he could directly reach a terrifying number of 21, close to 22 points. In other words, without using its spiritual power, Ah Huang's body could have a terrifying strength of more than 10,000 jin. With this power, not to mention a level 1 Divine Talisman Master, even a level 2 Divine Talisman Master would be an extremely top existence. If he used his spiritual power, he might even be able to take down a level 3 being when they were caught off guard. After that, it was Little Elf's turn. With this breakthrough, not only did Little Elf meet all the conditions for a grade upgrade, but her mental strength had also soared to a terrifying number of 9.1. With the Earth Staff and Fallen Mage Robe, his spirit would reach 15.1. This level of spiritual power was still very useful, and it had a great impact on the Little Elf's skill use. Unfortunately, none of the Little Elf's skills were offensive. Although soil transformation and change soil to stone could change the nature of the soil, they could not control the soil, so their combat power did not increase much. However, the little guy had already built a terrifying foundation. Next, as long as its quality could be raised, Wu Wei believed that this little fellow's strength would definitely welcome a terrifying explosion. At that time, Wu Wei would have Ah Huang in his left hand and Little Spirit in his right. He might not be able to do as he pleased in the Yuehua Academy, but he would at least be able to do as he pleased among the Tier 1 students. Of course, Wu Wei didn't want to do as he pleased. He wanted to keep a low profile since he had the white jade spider and the cheat in his heart. As low profile as possible, the kind that was hidden in the dust. It was best that no one discovered him and let him slowly hide until he was invincible. I hope I can continue to hide like this. Sighing softly, Wu Wei looked at the time and realized that it was already past 3 in the morning. Sleep, sleep, and recharge your batteries. We'll go and kill fish tomorrow morning. Just as Wu Wei was about to fall asleep, in a corner of Yuehua City, someone was whispering. Explosion completed. Chapter 96 to 96 Killing the Gator King. 96 Killing the Gator King. Crocodile Swamp, outside Yuehua City. Wu Wei, who had finished recuperating, once again brought Ah Huang and the little elf to the map that he had been farming for more than half a month. Wu Wei was more excited and nervous than usual when he came over again. This was because he wasn't going to face those ordinary crocodiles today. He was going to face the strongest boss in this map, the Crocodile King that he had not farmed for more than half a month. As they neared the Gator King's territory, Wu Wei was still a little worried. He instructed Ah Huang and the little elf, today's battle is a bit dangerous, so all of you have to be careful and prioritize your safety. If you can't take down that fish this time, then next time. From Wu Wei's words, it wasn't hard to tell that he wasn't absolutely sure if he could take down the Gator King in one go. This was mainly because he had received a piece of information from Ah Huang and the others. When Ah Huang had been chasing the big-headed crocodile, he had fought with the Gator King once and had broken 2 Divine Soldier talismans. Originally, Wu Wei had thought that Ah Huang's state was a normal state after the effect of the Yellow Turban Iron Bull stake had ended. However, Wu Wei later discovered that Ah Huang's spiritual energy was empty. This was very terrifying. This meant that at that time, Ah Huang was in the state of spiritual energy when he fought with the Crocodile King. Even in that state, he had destroyed 2 divine armament seals. According to Ah Huang and the little elf's description, the other party did not seem to have suffered any losses. If Ah Huang had not killed the big-headed crocodile in time, the consequences would have been unpredictable. This was very shocking. This caused Wu Wei's evaluation of the Gator King's strength to increase by quite a bit. Originally, Wu Wei thought that as long as Ah Huang's yellow turban Iron Bull stance was 2-star, he would be able to easily beat it. Now, not only was Ah Huang's yellow turban Iron Bull stance 2-star, but it was also fully armed. Its strength was many times stronger than half a month ago. However, Wu Wei did not have much confidence in taking down the Gator King. Other than strength, the other party had the geographical advantage. The other party had a 1-star Earth escape. If he couldn't win, he could run away at any time. Therefore, if Wu Wei wanted to take it down, he had to first solve the problem of it escaping. Wu Wei had already thought of this. Judging from the fact that the big-headed crocodile was able to take refuge in its territory with dozens of other crocodiles, this Gator King's control of its territory is not as strong as I thought. In this case, I have room to operate. They carefully approached the Gator King's territory, avoiding the places where the Gator King had appeared a few times. At a place that was relatively far away from the Gator King's territory, Wu Wei and his group carefully invaded the Gator King's territory. Throughout the entire process, Wu Wei was very careful, for fear that the Gator King would attack him if he did not pay attention. Fortunately, there was none. The Gator King didn't react to Wu Wei's group's sneaky infiltration. It clearly didn't notice their intrusion. Wu Wei's eyes brightened. He seized this opportunity to lead Ah Huang and the others to move out. He carefully let the little elf control her spirit chi and used soil transformation to slowly create a piece of land. If Team 8566 were here, they would have easily seen that Wu Wei was copying the images. It was a copy of the lost array from before. The only difference was that the one Wu Wei copied this time was much smaller than the one they had used before. Previously, Wu Wei's formation had covered an area of over 1,000 square meters. Now, Wu Wei had shrunk the area by more than 10 times. On one hand, there weren't that many people working. On the other hand, he didn't dare to make it too big for fear of alarming the Gator King. However, even if it was only 1/10 of the size, Wu Wei's side was still very careful. He didn't dare to let the little elf use her spiritual energy too freely, so he let it input it carefully bit by bit. There were no problems in the early stages. It was fine if the spiritual energy was a little less when transforming the soil. However, when Wu Wei finished setting up the basic structure of the maze and needed to turn soil into stone, the little fairy had no choice but to increase her spiritual energy. This also meant that the risk of Wu Wei and the others being exposed had increased. Wu Wei narrowed his eyes. I'll slowly increase my spiritual energy first. Let's see if I can set up a base without alerting the Gator King. After setting up the formation, Wu Wei's side would be able to fight with the other side much more easily. This was the most beneficial for him. However, it was impossible for everything to develop in the most beneficial direction for him. As the amount of spirit chi the little elf injected increased, it was still fine at the start, as the surrounding soil was successfully petrified. However, when the petrification reached a certain range, a pair of eyes began to open in the depths of the swamp. Then, the Gator King began to emerge from the depths of the swamp, heading straight in the direction of Wu Wei and the others. At the same time, on Wu Wei's side, he was standing on a mound more than 5 meters high. He was the first to see the Gator King running towards him. Sure enough, it's impossible to prepare everything in other people's territory before fighting. It seems that there's no hope for the array. Since we've been discovered, there's no need for you to hide anymore, little elf. Come at me at full power. The little elf didn't like the feeling of being stifled. It was already annoyed. Now that it had obtained Wu Wei's approval, this little fellow immediately let loose and unleashed all of its spiritual chi to change soil into stone. Chapter 97-97 Killing the Gator King. 97 Killing the Gator King. This was also the first time that the little elf had cast a spell with all her might after the one-star heart of the earth. The scene was truly shocking. In an instant, a yellow light was emitted from the little fairy. Wherever the yellow light passed, the ground immediately turned from an earthy yellow to a dark brown. At the same time, Wu Wei, who was standing on the high platform, squinted his eyes and once again examined the Gator King's attributes. Talisman Monster, Gator King of the Earth Swamp, Boss. Strength, 8 Constitution, 10 Spirit, 6 points, Agility, 8 points. Skills Mastered, Gator King's Roar, 1 star, Earth Escape, 1 star, Gravity Spell, 1 star, Death Dance, 1 star, Earth Armor, 2 star. P.S. Seems to be in a weakened state after a burst. Looking at the attributes that were exactly the same as before, Wu Wei drew his bow and shot an arrow at the Gator King that was running towards him. The 3-star basic archery skill had not only improved Wu Wei's swordsmanship, but it had also improved his swordsmanship. More importantly, it allowed Wu Wei to master the spiritual energy arrow, a technique unique to divine talisman archers. At this moment, Wu Wei could attach spirit chi to his arrows to increase their penetrating power. It must be known that even the Arrow Man, a true divine talisman archer, had not mastered this technique, yet Wu Wei, a divine talisman summoner, had actually mastered it. One could only imagine how much of a shock the Arrow Man had received when he saw Wu Wei shoot the spirit chi arrow. However, other than being struck by Wu Wei's spirit chi arrow, the Arrow Man also felt pity for Wu Wei. This was because Wu Wei wasn't a true divine talisman archer. Although Wu Wei had mastered the spirit chi arrow, he didn't engrave the runes of a divine talisman archer. The nature of his spirit chi was different from that of a divine talisman archer, and the power of the spirit chi arrow he shot out was different. It was much weaker, and the effect was much less. For example, at this moment, Wu Wei had drawn his bow, and every arrow he shot out was a spiritual energy arrow, and every arrow was accurate and ruthless. But it was basically useless. The Gator King was covered in a layer of earth yellow protective shield. It was the 2-star earth armor. A normal earth armor's defense was already able to withstand Wu Wei's Reiki arrows, let alone a 2-star earth armor. Wu Wei's spirit chi arrows bounced off the armor. After catching a few arrows and realizing that Wu Wei's arrows did not cause any damage to him, Gator King no longer dodged and directly faced them head-on. Wu Wei laughed. He took out a crocodile bone arrow from the waterskin's quiver on his waist and mixed it with other ordinary arrows. He aimed at the crocodile and fired 5 arrows in a row. Wu Wei's move was simply amazing. 3 arrows were shot at the same time. One person was able to make it feel like an archer squad. The 15 arrows were divided into 3 groups and hit 3 different parts of the Gator King's body. 5 arrows were shot at each of the 3 spots, with no deviation at all. This archery skill was indeed a cheat. However, it still couldn't break through the Gator King's defense. Just as the Gator King let down his guard, the Gator bone arrow fell. The fine-grade crocodile bone arrow showed its might. A 1-star armor penetration could reduce a target's defense by 21 levels, although it could not completely break through the Gator King's 2-star earth armor. However, the crocodile bone arrow had other effects. Double damage directly doubled Wu Wei's attack power. Wu Wei's base strength was 4.5, and with the additional 5 points from the 2 stars of the yellow turban iron bull stance, it reached 9.5. In other words, the attack power of this arrow had reached the level of 18.5. 18.5. It might not be a big deal if the power was condensed into a fist, but it was terrifying when it was condensed into a single point. It instantly pierced through the Gator King's defense and went straight for the Gator King's eyes. If he could hit the eye, Wu Wei's battle would end early. But unfortunately, the Gator King's agility was as high as 8 points. 8 points of agility gave the Gator King an extremely strong reaction speed, allowing it to react in time to shake its head and avoid the eye, allowing the arrow to land on its shoulder. The bone arrow exploded after penetrating 4 or 5 centimeters through the Gator King's shoulder, leaving a hideous wound on his body. This arrow had slightly injured the Gator King, but at the same time, it had angered the Gator King. His eyes reddened as he glared at Wu Wei. Then, his body turned yellow and disappeared into the soil. Wu Wei's eyes narrowed, but he was not surprised at all. When he shot that arrow, he already knew what he would face next. If nothing unexpected happened, the Gator King would attack from underground. It should be about time. Wu Wei had just finished speaking when a dull sound came from under his feet. It was the sound of the Gator King's head hitting a rock. The corner of Wu Wei's mouth rose. Although the Gator King had come very quickly, leaving him with no time to set up the disorientation formation, the little fairy had already created a stone floor of several dozen square meters. If the Gator King wanted to attack from underground, he would be thinking too much. Wu Wei looked at the floor that had turned dark brown and chuckled. The entire floor shook. It must have hit the floor quite hard, right? That's right, the Gator King's head was already broken. After all, it had hit a stone that was dozens of square meters in size and nearly 1 meter in length. Even a Huang might not be able to do anything to this kind of stone, let alone a crocodile with only 8 strength. However, Wu Wei did not remain smug for long. A smile had just appeared on his face when suddenly, a force was added to his body for no reason. What was even more terrifying was that his internal organs felt extremely uncomfortable at this moment, as if they were stuffed with stones. Wu Wei almost knelt down on the spot. The little elf on the side was even more miserable, directly smacked to the ground by gravity. Gravity technique. Wu Wei reacted almost immediately. F***ck, how many times is this terrifying gravity? While Wu Wei was still struggling with how many times the gravity was, there was a loud bang. At the edge of the stone, a piece of soil was violently knocked away. At the same time, the Gator King, covered in blood and soil, climbed up from below. The Gator King looked at Wu Wei and the little fairy, who were still under the control of the gravity spell, and its long and narrow eyes were filled with a cruel killing intent. Si. The Gator King's shrill voice rang out as it charged towards Wu Wei with its 4 short legs. As a vengeful creature, it chose to kill Wu Wei first. When the Gator King arrived in front of Wu Wei, it opened its ferocious mouth and was about to tear Wu Wei into pieces. The corners of Wu Wei's lips curled up. At this time, in the next second, an aqua blue blade light burst out, accurately chopping down towards the Gator King's head. The Gator King only realized that there was a yellow dog beside Wu Wei when the blade exploded. The reason why it didn't see Ah Huang was that Ah Huang had activated the effect of the crocodile suit, crocodile disguise. It had been squatting there for a long time just to give the Gator King a surprise. This surprise was obviously a little too big for the Gator King to accept, but at this critical moment, it was too late for him to dodge. So all the Gator King could do was open his mouth and let out a sharp roar. Gator King's roar. A sharp roar spread out like waves, and the sound went straight to Wu Wei's head. Along with the voice came a terrifying spiritual pressure. It was obvious that Gator King's roar was a crowd control skill, and Wu Wei was stunned by the roar. The little fairy at the side rolled her eyes and almost fainted with stars in her eyes. But unfortunately, Ah Huang was fine. At the critical moment, the skill effect of the crocodile helmet on his head, crocodile protection, was triggered, helping Ah Huang to be immune to this attack. The Gator King would never have dreamed that one day he would be stabbed in the back by his own people, and in such a way. The water blue blade light fell without any resistance, cutting into the Gator King's neck. This strike was condensed with 21 points of yellow strength, the water element damage of the water blade, and the skills of the water blade. The damage was terrifying. With a screech sound, the Gator King's head was directly chopped off. Its body exploded in an instant, and 4 light spots burst out. At the same time, the golden finger notifications before Wu Wei's eyes started to flood the screen. Chapter 98-98 See the Black Iron Treasure Chest Again. 98 See the Black Iron Treasure Chest Again. Wu Wei clutched his still throbbing head and looked at the Crocodile King that had been cut into 2 by Ah Huang. He let out a long sigh of relief, but at the same time, he was a little surprised. To be honest, Wu Wei had already prepared himself for a tough battle. He didn't expect to take down the Gator King so easily. Its strength isn't as I expected. It should be related to the weak state after its strength burst. Looking at it this way, the 2 pieces of equipment from before weren't wasted. At least they made today's battle a little easier. More importantly, the investment in the 2 divine weapon seals had also paid off today. By taking down the Gator King, Wu Wei could at least earn a few hundred contribution points. As excited as he was, Wu Wei glanced at the golden finger notification in front of him. You've met the requirements for your first origin skill. Powerful Pig Slaughtering Knife has been upgraded by 1 star. 4 gold finger prompts appeared. The first one was that Ah Huang had to kill 20 excellent rune monsters in one go. The second one should be the water blade skill. Needless to say, the third and fourth skill was the powerful pig slaughtering knife. After a few days of polishing, this skill condition finally reached 1 star under the nourishment of the Gator King's blood. However, Wu Wei didn't know much about this skill. All he knew was that the skill seemed to have changed from an attack method to a technique of using a blade. Not only could he make every normal a powerful pig slaughtering knife, but he could even add the skill of powerful pig slaughtering knife into the water disaster knife. Such a skill undoubtedly had great potential. Wu Wei was also envious, but he had too many skills to learn. The most important skills were the Yellow Turban Iron Bull Stance, the Heart of the Earth, and a series of Talisman Master skills. He was really a little overwhelmed. At present, he did not have the time to take out the time to specifically learn these from Ah Huang. Moreover, he had not received the corresponding legacy mission, so Wu Wei felt that it would not be easy to learn it. Therefore, Wu Wei didn't pay much attention to Ah Huang's skill. What Wu Wei was most concerned about at the moment was whether the Gator King's heart had burst out. At present, his gathering skill was only 1 star, and there was still a long way to go before it reached 2 star. If the Gator King's heart did not burst out, he would be in trouble. Fortunately, there were still some. One of the 4 spots of light was the heart of the Gator King. This made Commander Wu let out a sigh of relief. Then, Wu Wei began to work. He would not let go of such a good practice material. He began to take out the tooth extraction tools that he had specially bought this time and pulled out the Gator King's teeth one by one. The Gator King's teeth were not easy to pull out. Even with professional tools, Wu Wei still spent more than an hour to pull out all the teeth. There was a total of 88, but after Wu Wei collected them, 18 of them were wasted. Out of the 70 successful ones, 62 of them dropped in level because Wu Wei's gathering skill did not reach a 2-star rating. It dropped from the excellent grade to fine grade, but he still managed to get 8 excellent grade teeth in the end. 62 fine grade and 8 excellent grade. That's not bad. I'll send them back to the logistics department and ask them to help me make bone arrows. Before Wu Wei made his move today, it was as if he was fantasizing about how he would spend the 5 million yuan he had won. He had already thought about how he would deal with his gains. The difference was that the fantasy winner was just a fantasy, while Wu Wei really killed the Gator King. Therefore, all the preparations he had made in the morning could be put to use, and all his ideas could be realized. If he was not mistaken, the teeth in his hands should be able to be exchanged for fine or even superior arrows. Wu Wei, who had just used the crocodile bone arrow, had a deep understanding of the power of this arrow. He looked down on ordinary arrows. Of course, the main reason was that Wu Wei wasn't a genuine divine talisman archer. If he wanted to display his archery skills, the only feasible way was to use this kind of divine weapon talisman arrow. After pulling out the teeth, Wu Wei did not stop. Taking advantage of the fact that the Gator King's corpse had not yet respawned, Wu Wei took off its claws and collected 8 fine grade and 2 excellent grade claws. As for the Gator King's corpse, it could not bear the burden of Wu Wei's torture and was refreshed with a plop. Seeing the Gator King's corpse respawn, Wu Wei finally stopped and turned his gaze to the spirit grass he had seen half a month ago. When he arrived, Wu Wei spent more than 10 minutes collecting all the spiritual herbs in the area. There were 128 stalks in total. Without exception, all of them were fine grade or above. In other words, Wu Wei did not care for anything below fine quality, so he did not collect them and was prepared to keep them. Among the 128,121 were fine grade, and 7 were excellent grade. Wu Wei's hands were trembling as he held the 7 superior quality spirit herbs. These were superior grade spirit herbs. One of them was worth more than 100 contribution points and 7 of them would be worth at least 700 contribution points. Just these alone were comparable to Wu Wei's earnings from last time. Fortunately, the nature of the herbs was relatively stable, so the difficulty of collecting them was relatively low. Otherwise, Wu Wei might not have dared to collect them himself. Chapter 99-99 See the Black Iron Chest Again too. 99 See the Black Iron Chest Again too. If I go back and sell these 7, my wallet will be full again. Of course, even though he said that, in reality, Wu Wei did not plan to sell these 7 stalks of spirit grass. Or rather, he did not plan to sell all of them. He would leave at least 5 stalks for Blackie. Carefully keeping the spirit herbs, Wu Wei waved his hand in high spirits. Little elf Ah Huang, let's go home. Ah Huang, on the other hand, immediately stood beside Wu Wei. He turned around and looked around. Where was the little elf? Where was the little elf that was just around him? Where did this little fellow run off to? Wu Wei frowned and was about to summon the talisman book to sense the girl's location. At this moment, a little fellow covered in mud emerged from the swamp not far in front of Wu Wei. It stuck its head out and shook its head frantically to get rid of the mud on its head. Then, it revealed a sweet smile at Wu Wei. She looked like a silly husky. Seeing her like this, Wu Wei's face was filled with helplessness. Where did you go to play? The little elf blinked her eyes and didn't say anything. Her body sank a little. Wu Wei immediately felt that something was amiss. What are you still doing in there? Hurry up and come out. The little fairy still didn't say anything and didn't come out. This was very wrong. There was something wrong with this little elf. Wu Wei didn't even need to use his intuition to tell him that this little fellow had the question written all over his face. Wu Wei lifted the little girl out of the swamp. She didn't look any different from before, and there didn't seem to be anything unusual, but Wu Wei still felt that something was wrong. Thus, Wu Wei's gaze fell on the little fellow's tightly shut mouth. Come, open your mouth. The little fairy shook her head. Come on, open your mouth and I'll let you eat this. Wu Wei took out the Gator King's heart, and the little elf couldn't resist the temptation and opened her mouth. As soon as she opened her mouth, several cracks appeared on the little fairy's originally dense teeth. A few of her front teeth fell out, and 1 or 2 of her molars on both sides fell off. Seeing the little guy like this, Wu Wei couldn't help but burst out laughing. Wait, are your teeth broken? It would have been fine if Wu Wei had not laughed, but the moment he did, the little fairy immediately shut her mouth and turned her head away, looking like an angry little fairy. Well, don't be fooled by the little fairy's small size. She also had her own pride. Don't be angry, don't be angry, I won't laugh anymore. Tell me what happened to my teeth? Why are you so terrified? It haha. Even though the promise was not funny, the moment he thought of this little fellow, he couldn't hold back. The little girl was so angry that she grabbed Wu Wei's hand and bit it. However, the moment she touched Wu Wei's hand, Wu Wei rolled on the ground without even using any force. Ah! My hand, my king's power! The little fairy was dumbfounded. Were her little teeth that powerful? Before she could come back to her senses, Wu Wei came over and begged for mercy. Little elf, Wu Wei won't dare to laugh at little elf anymore. Little elf, can you please tell me? The little fairy's self-esteem was greatly satisfied. She felt that she was so powerful that even Wu Wei's wounds had become better. Therefore, the little guy was happy and let go of Wu Wei's hand. It pulled Wu Wei into the depths of the swamp to see what it had discovered. That, are you sure you're not trying to kill master? Wu Wei broke out in a cold sweat when he saw the little fairy pulling him, indicating that she was going to bring him into the swamp. Is there something down there? You want me to get you to bring the thing up? The little fairy shook her head, indicating that she couldn't get the thing down there. How about this? You can use soil to create a path that leads to the bottom. Under Wu Wei's guidance, the little fairy used soil modification and spent more than half an hour to create a road that led to the depths of the swamp. Following this path, Wu Wei went all the way down and quickly arrived at the bottom of the swamp 10 meters below. At this point, Wu Wei thought that he had arrived, but in the end, he still hadn't. There was a hole at the bottom of the swamp, and the little fairy brought Wu Wei into it. Then, Wu Wei saw a scene that left him dumbfounded. He had thought that the cave would be dark and he was even prepared to take out the torch talisman. He did not expect that there would be a soft yellow light in the cave. In the light, Wu Wei could clearly see the situation in the cave. The cave was about 40 to 50 square meters in size, and the most eye-catching part was undoubtedly the center of the cave, where the soft yellow light source was. Wu Wei walked over and saw that the source of the yellow light was a fist-sized yellow crystal. Standing beside the yellow crystal, Wu Wei felt that the heart of the earth in his mind had brightened up a lot, and the earth energy around him seemed to be very rich. In addition, Wu Wei also saw a few small teeth beside the yellow crystal. Looking at the teeth and the mud stains on the yellow crystal, Wu Wei could roughly guess how the fairy's teeth had fallen off. Wu Wei carefully picked up a yellow crystal from the ground. He had thought that it would be difficult, but it turned out to be surprisingly easy. After taking out the yellow crystal, Wu Wei's eyes narrowed. Using this backward method, Wu Wei took a lot of effort to see the attributes of this thing. Wondrous item, Earth Spirit Stone. Description, contains a large amount of Earth attribute energy. It has the ability to gather Earth attribute energy. A wondrous item. This thing is very rare. Wu Wei did not know much about the so-called wondrous items. He only knew that it was a rather broad category. The Andri Instance Dungeon Stone Tablet was considered a wondrous item, and now this Earth Spirit Stone was also considered a wondrous item. Although Wu Wei still didn't know what this Earth Spirit Stone was used for, from its quality and brief introduction, he could tell that it was very valuable. With such a harvest as soon as he entered, Wu Wei became even more eager to obtain this cave. Raising the Earth Spirit Stone in his hand, Wu Wei continued to observe the cave. Under the light, Wu Wei realized that the ground of the cave was very damp. The southeast corner was a little deep and dark, so he couldn't see the situation there. However, there were many palm-sized mushrooms growing in the southwest corner. Wu Wei's eyes swept over them, and the stats of the mushrooms appeared before his eyes. Earth Spirit Mushroom. Description, grows in a humid environment with rich earth energy. If handled well, it will become a good elixir. If not handled well, it will become a good poison when eaten. Superior quality mushrooms. Wu Wei's eyes brightened, and he quickly collected all the mushrooms in the cave. There was a total of 28 of them, 3 of which were of excellent grade, and 20 of them were of fine grade. Of course, there were some that were below fine grade, and Wu Wei did not try to pick them. High-quality ones were not worth much contribution points, so it was better to keep them for a while. If no one discovered this place, Wu Wei would be able to come and harvest them every once in a while. After picking the mushrooms, Wu Wei walked towards the southeast corner. Wu Wei's eyes narrowed as he arrived at the southeast corner. A treasure chest. In the most corner of the southeast corner, a black iron treasure chest was lying there quietly. Looking at the treasure chest, Wu Wei's lips curled into a smile. Little elf. Wu Wei pulled the little fairy over and kissed her passionately. This little fellow was his lucky charm. If not for it, Wu Wei would have lost at least 1,000 contribution points in this wave. After the passionate kiss, Wu Wei pointed at the treasure chest in front of him and said with anticipation, "Come, open this chest for me. I'll give you something good to eat when we get home." The little fairy, who was dizzy from the kiss, immediately perked up when she heard this. She hurriedly asked, "Is it the long, big, fragrant, and delicious thing?" It was obvious that the little girl's desire for the mud staff had not died down. Wu Wei wanted to refuse, but on second thought, Wisp was about to level up. He had already eaten quite a lot of resources this time, so he was not lacking an earth staff. Gritting his teeth, Wu Wei nodded. "If you can get something good, I'll let you eat that staff." Hearing this, the little elf was so happy that she showed her teeth, which were missing a few front teeth and back molars. She flapped her little wings and flew towards the black iron treasure chest. Chapter 100 to 100 Powerful New Skill. 100 Powerful New Skill. Crocodile Swamp, in the mysterious cave. As the little elf opened the black iron treasure chest, a notification popped up in front of Wu Wei's eyes. Your second origin summoned beast Earth Fairy has opened a black iron treasure chest and obtained a skill book Frivolous Illusion. At the same time, the treasure chest in front of the little fairy disappeared, leaving behind a white book. The little fairy was still looking at the skill book curiously, but Wu Wei had already taken the skill book. Skill book, Light Camouflage. Skill level, Normal. Skill description, Auxiliary skill. After learning it, it can create illusions to disguise itself. The scope of the disguise included but was not limited to one's appearance, profession, level, attributes, spiritual power, origin quality. Looking at the skill book's attributes, Wu Wei's eyes immediately lit up. This skill was very suitable for him. After all, as a person who kept a low profile, Wu Wei would often feel vexed by his overly outstanding appearance and overly powerful strength. It was still fine now, as he did not have much contact with the outside world. He had only come into contact with Little Black, the 8566 team. When his strength increased, he would come into contact with more people. People like him would inevitably attract attention. This was something Wu Wei did not want. With this skill, Wu Wei would be able to keep a lower profile. There was even hope of becoming invincible. As such, Wu Wei did not hesitate to use the skill book. As Wu Wei clapped his hands, the skill book in his hand shrunken. Immediately after, a large amount of information gushed into Wu Wei's mind. You've learned the skill Light Camouflage. On Wu Wei's attribute panel, there was an additional skill. This was the advantage of a skill book. It was much more reliable than inheritances. As soon as he touched it, a skill would be sent over. Wu Wei couldn't wait to test out the new skill he had just obtained. The moment he touched it, Wu Wei's brows furrowed. The experience of using this skill was completely different from the experience of using the other skills before. It wasn't that it was harder to use than other skills, but rather, it was easier. It was so simple that Wu Wei was a little dumbfounded, as if it was a fool's play. Wu Wei could activate the skill with a single thought. It was just the effect of this skill. How should he put it? Wu Wei felt that he had let down his expectations. It could indeed change the outside, level, attribute, spiritual power, and origin quality. However, it could only make minor adjustments on the original basis, no more than 20%. For example, Wu Wei, who was currently level 18, could not be higher than level 15 and 21 when he disguised himself. Its attributes and level were still decent, but its appearance was the most important. Wu Wei wasn't very satisfied with this minor adjustment to his appearance. Even though Wu Wei had tried his best to disguise himself, when he took out a mirror and looked at himself, he still stood out. This was very infuriating. His looks were too high and couldn't be reduced at all, not at all achieving the effect of keeping a low profile. Fortunately, light camouflage could be upgraded like the other skills. Wu Wei saw the progress bar at the back, but when he took a closer look at the number 1/5000, he frowned. The starting price is 5,000, this skill is a bit too much. Is this skill made of gold or is the effect of the skill made of gold? Up until now, Wu Wei had never seen an initial requirement as high as this. Not only was it high, but it was also very difficult to master. Wu Wei had been using it for almost 10 minutes, but it had not grown at all. If he wanted to produce results, he would have to invest a lot of time and energy. Wu Wei immediately cast the skill aside. After that, Wu Wei packed up and brought Ah Huang and the others back to Yuehua City. In the logistics department, Wu Wei opened all 4 of the light spots that Gator King had dropped. You've activated the blue dot of light. You've received a material talisman Gator King's heart. You've activated the blue dot of light. You've received the material Gator King's bone marrow X1. You've activated the blue dot of light. You've received an excellent divine weapon seal Gator King's horn. You've activated the blue light. You've received a divine rune of excellence gravity talisman. All 4 dots of light were blue without exception. Of the 2 materials, the heart was the wisp's. As for the bone marrow, Wu Wei was going to give it to Blackie. As for the remaining 2, the gravity talisman was an excellent quality magic talisman. The most important function of this thing was to record. Wu Wei would definitely not use it. After all, a card that cost more than 100 contribution points could only be used 3 times. Wu Wei was not that rich. Hence, Wu Wei would definitely sell it in the end. In other words, out of the 4 light spots, the only thing that could be left behind was probably the Gator King's horn. Wu Wei opened the attributes of this thing. Divine Armament Seal, Gator King's horn. Classification, Accessory. Usage requirement, level 20. Effect 1, all attributes of the wearer increase by 2 points. Effect 2, Gator King's roar, once a day. Effect 3, Gator King summon, once per day, you can summon the Gator King to fight for you for 30 minutes. P.S. If the Gator King is destroyed in the middle of a battle, this effect will enter a 1-month-long cooldown. Chapter 101 to 101 Powerful New Skill 2. 101 Powerful New Skill 2. Looking at the attributes of the Gator King's horn, Wu Wei gasped. As expected of an outstanding divine armament seal, its effects were terrifying. Not only did it have 2 additional skills, but it also increased his attributes by 8 points. Looking at this thing, Wu Wei's saliva almost drooled out. The items were good, but the level required was a little high. Level 20. Without the taunting loudspeaker, Wu Wei would probably have to grind in the crocodile swamp for a few months before he could reach level 20. Is there no way for me to use it now? When he said that, Wu Wei felt like he was thinking about what to eat. However, Wu Wei's eyes narrowed as soon as he finished speaking. It doesn't seem to be completely impossible. Wu Wei suddenly thought of the skill he had just acquired, light illusion, and a bold idea came to his mind. Can I use that skill to increase my own level and trick the Gator King's horn into using it? It was a bold idea, but Wu Wei felt that it was worth a try. And so, Wu Wei activated light illusion and raised his level to 20. Then, he picked up Gator King's horn. This time, As soon as Wu Wei touched it, he immediately felt a surge of energy from the Gator King's horn pouring into his body. Wu Wei was both surprised and delighted. He was just testing it out on a whim, and he didn't expect it to work. Then, Wu Wei studied it and found that it could be used, but he had to maintain light illusion mode. This was not difficult. Light illusion did not consume much Reiki. With his current spirit energy, Wu Wei had no problem maintaining it for 2 to 3 hours. If he were to take medicine, it would last even longer. In other words, as long as Wu Wei was willing to put in the effort, he could wear the Gator King's horn all the time. And this was not the most surprising thing for Wu Wei. What surprised Wu Wei the most was that since light illusion could allow him to use Gator King's horn, it meant that this skill had a lot of room for development. If I can deceive the Gator King's horn, does that mean I can also deceive other Divine Soldier talismans? I can't equip some of the Divine Soldier talismans that my attributes don't meet the requirements, but can I use this method to equip them? Or even... At this point, Wu Wei paused, his eyes shining with an unprecedented light. Is there a chance for me to wear equipment of other classes through light illusion? Or even the origin talismans of other professions? Or did he trick the rune book into recording 2 first and 2 second origins? Once he opened his mind, all kinds of thoughts rushed into his head. The more Wu Wei thought about it, the more he felt that light illusion was a very promising skill. At this moment, Wu Wei looked at the proficiency of light illusion, which was 1/5000, and did not think that the other party had gone too far. Right now, Wu Wei's mind was filled with thoughts on how to increase the proficiency of this skill. Let's train. I'll be staying here 24 hours a day. I'll spend money to train this skill. After that, Wu Wei took care of the things in his hands. Gravity Talisman was sold for 110 contribution points. He had sold 80 high-quality spiritual herbs for 280 contribution points. Then, he handed the Gator King's tooth to the logistics department and handed in a task to forge a Divine Soldier talisman. Are you sure you want to submit the Divine Weapon Seal forging task? The smithing task that you have submitted will require a one-time payment of 200 contribution points. Also, you will need to sign a mission contract to indicate that you are aware of the risks that the mission may bring and that you are willing to bear all reasonable losses. When Wu Wei handed over the tooth, the young lady from the logistics department handed him a contract. Wu Wei picked it up and took a look. On it was written that there was a certain probability of failure when forging the Divine Armament Seal. As long as the forging success rate was higher than 30%, the task would be considered a success. Of course, if the percentage was lower than 30%, the blacksmith who accepted the task would compensate Wu Wei. Looking at the contract, Wu Wei gritted his teeth. In other words, even if he took out 200 contribution points and 70 Gator King teeth, he could only get 21 arrows in the end. Wu Wei felt that this forging task was a bit of a scam. How much did 21 arrows cost? Wu Wei turned around to look at the logistics department's exchange counter. He almost choked on his own breath. Wolf Fang arrow, exquisite grade, level 20, 20 contribution points for 1 arrow. Piercing arrow, exquisite grade, level 20, 15 contribution points for 1 arrow. Heart piercing arrow, excellent, level 20, 100 contribution points for 1. The cheapest arrow of exquisite quality cost 15 contribution points and the superior ones cost more than 100. It was even more expensive than pills of the same grade. Wu Wei's scalp went numb. What an archer shot was not an arrow, but money. However, Wu Wei could roughly understand after looking at the attributes of these arrows. On one hand, the attributes of these arrows were quite good. On the other hand, it was the most important point. Because of the crocodile bone arrow, Wu Wei had thought that the arrow was a consumable. But now, he realized that these exquisite grade and above arrows could be used twice or even thrice. 200 contribution points for 21 arrows didn't seem too expensive. Only then did Wu Wei realize what kind of arrows the recovery ability of the water fish's quiver was for. Chapter 102 to 102 Powerful New Skill 3. 102 Powerful New Skill 3. Moreover, Wu Wei had also browsed through the other divine weapon seal forging missions and discovered that although the contract stated that the success rate was 30%, there was basically no blacksmith who had a success rate of 30%. After all, a blacksmith's success rate was their trump card. The higher their success rate, the more likely they were to receive a mission. Therefore, the lowest success rate was 35%. There was even one with a terrifying success rate of 70%, which was much higher than the other blacksmiths. Wu Wei's eyes lit up when he saw this person. He expressed that he hoped that this blacksmith would be the one to forge his divine armament seal. The staff from the logistics department also smiled and told Wu Wei that this was definitely not a problem. As long as Wu Wei could add 500 contribution points, they would immediately arrange for him. When Wu Wei heard this, the light in his eyes immediately disappeared. It was only then that he realized that all the services had been set in advance. He was only willing to spend 200 contribution points, so he wasn't even qualified to be a blacksmith. In the end, Wu Wei could only sign the contract with tears in his eyes, handing over 200 contribution points and the 70 Gator King teeth. After spending these 200 contribution points, Wu Wei only had 240 contribution points left in his pocket, 50 of which were from the previous time. With this amount of money, Wu Wei started to check the information on the counter. Realizing the effect of light illusion, Wu Wei wanted to use the skill 24 hours a day. In this way, he would need enough spirit energy to support it. What he was looking for now was an item that could provide him with spiritual energy. The counter in the logistics department was quite advanced, and people could enter keywords to search. After Wu Wei entered the two keywords Reiki and recovery, many things popped up on the counter. Wu Wei chose pricing from low to high, and the cheapest one appeared in front of him. 1 normal spirit talisman pill, 20, 1 high quality spirit talisman pill, 2, 5 high-quality spirit talisman pill, 1, and 1 superior spirit talisman pill, 50. Among them, the fine and excellent ones could exist in the body and slowly provide spiritual energy. Wu Wei tried to feel the amount of Reiki that light illusion consumed. If I use the spirit talisman pill, I'll probably have to start with a high-quality one. I'll need at least 1 to 2 pills a day. In other words, he might need 10 contribution points a day, which would be 300 contribution points in a month. This was very exaggerated. Wu Wei felt as if his heart was bleeding when he saw the data. Isn't there anything else that's cheaper? Wu Wei checked the other items. There were definitely better items, but they were more expensive. Currently, the only option that Wu Wei could accept was the spirit talisman pill. Sigh. What else can I do? I'll just use it like this for now. I'll stop when I really can't do it later. As he spoke, Wu Wei was about to start. However, he stopped when he was about to submit the order. Wait, did I forget something? Why should I buy talisman pills from the logistics department? Don't I have an alchemist at home? Although Blackie had not produced many proper pills, he was still a genius who could make high-quality tree essence pills. Wu Wei felt that he should be able to get rid of Blackie regarding the spirit talisman pill. Hence, Wu Wei stopped the trade and returned to the dormitory with the spiritual herb. When Wu Wei returned to his dormitory, he realized that there was an unexpected guest in his dormitory. Chapter 103 to 103 Little Elf Evolution. 103 Little Elf Evolution. Yuehua City, in the lobby on the first floor of Wu Wei's dormitory. A woman who was nearly 2 meters tall and wearing silver-white armor gave Wu Wei a strong visual and mental shock. Of course, Wu Wei could recognize this woman. The yellow turban iron horn hanging on Awang's waist was what Wu Wei had bought from her for 2 contribution points. In addition, Wu Wei clearly remembered that he was also the first to arrive at the cave in the small labyrinth. She seemed to be called Zhongshenan. However, Wu Wei had no idea why she was sitting in his living room. "Are you here to find Little Black?" "No, that's not possible. Little Black doesn't look like someone with friends." Well, it should be said that he didn't seem to be the kind of person who was particularly strong, particularly able to give people a sense of oppression, and was also a friend of the opposite sex. "She's here to find me." At that moment, alarm bells went off in Wu Wei's heart. Did something happen to her? Just as Wu Wei's heart was in turmoil, Zhongshenan, who was sitting opposite him, also saw Wu Wei. At once, Wu Wei could clearly feel that the other party's gaze was filled with unconcealed killing intent. In that instant, Wu Wei felt as if a knife was placed on his neck, ready to slit his throat open at any moment. This intense sense of danger made Wu Wei almost pull out his book of runes. At this moment, light footsteps were heard. In an instant, the killing intent in Zhongshenan's eyes disappeared and was replaced by a kind expression. "You must be Guangguan's roommate, Wu Wei. I've heard Guangguan mention you before. She said that you're a very, very good person. Thank you for taking care of our Guangguan during this period of time." Wu Wei didn't even have time to react to this change in expression. What made Wu Wei even more dumbfounded was that this woman was really Little Black's friend. At this moment, Wu Wei felt as if he was in a dream. Little Black actually had such a friend. She looked at Zhongshenan and then at Little Black. She could not react for a long time. At this moment, Little Black finally came over with 2 cups of tea. Little Black was obviously pouring the 2 cups of tea for Zhongshenan. However, when she saw Wu Wei, she immediately changed her direction and ran to Wu Wei with the tea in her hands. At the same time, she took the spirit grass and earth spirit mushroom from Wu Wei's hands. Her actions were gentle and natural, just like a wife taking the briefcase of her husband who had just returned home. This scene made Wu Wei feel as if there was a dagger on his back. No, it wasn't his back, it was piercing to the eyes. Upon seeing this, the killing intent in Zhongshenan's eyes intensified. She looked at Wu Wei with contempt. It was as if she was looking at a scumbag who had kidnapped an underage girl from her neighbor's house. Wu Wei couldn't stand such a gaze. "Hello." He nodded at the other party perfunctorily, then whispered into Little Black's ear, "These herbs are for you, you." Wu Wei had wanted to give it to Little Black, but she changed her mind. "I'll bring you to the alchemy room on the way. If you're free these 2 days, help me refine some spirit talisman pills. I have use for them." After giving the order to Little Black, Wu Wei nodded to Zhongshenan again and left. After Wu Wei left, Black took the tea that Wu Wei had not taken over and handed it to Zhongshenan. Zhongshenan's eyes were filled with resentment when she saw this scene. They had been best friends for so many years, and now she had to drink what others didn't want. What was even more heart-wrenching was that the sign behind Little Black was erected as soon as Zhongshenan took the tea. "Hurry up and leave after you're done drinking. I'm going to refine pills for him." Zhongshenan felt that the tea in her hand had become unusually bitter when she saw the sign. She had been best friends for more than 10 years. Did she have to be like this? At this moment, she even had the urge to rush over and smash Wu Wei to pieces with her hammer. What did that fellow use to seduce her little cutie? Good looks. Wait a minute, speaking of Wu Wei's looks. Zhongshenan suddenly felt that she had seen Wu Wei somewhere before. After thinking about it carefully, Zhongshenan suddenly reacted. Wasn't this guy the one who had bought things from her in the real world? In addition, he seemed to be in the cave of the small labyrinth. Although Zhongshenan did not see Wu Wei in the cave of the small labyrinth, he still cast a glance at the list of names for that day. Zhongshenan's eyes narrowed when she thought of this. If she remembered correctly, when she first met Wu Wei, he was not even level 1. When they were in the small labyrinth, he was already level 1. However, the Wu Wei she saw just now had already reached level 15. He had leveled up 4 times in just over half a month. More importantly, she could feel that Wu Wei's physical fitness was extraordinary. It did not seem like the physical fitness of a divine talisman summoner. This Wu Wei was really something. At the same time, in the training field on the first underground floor, Wu Wei frowned. The moment he saw Zhong Shennan, he had dropped his level to 15 almost immediately. It was almost an instinctive reaction. As soon as he saw someone related to the small labyrinth and the white jade spider pendant, Wu Wei subconsciously wanted to hide. However, Wu Wei knew very well that his concealment would probably not have much effect. It wasn't that Wu Wei felt that light illusion was useless. Wu Wei was quite confident in it. It could even hide from the divine armament seal, so it should not be difficult to hide from Zhong Shennan. Chapter 104 to 104 Little Elf Evolution 2. 104 Little Elf Evolution 2. However, the problem was that Wu Wei was too powerful. He tried his best to hide it. He was already level 15, and his attributes were even better. No matter how hard he tried to hide it, he would only have 3 or 4 attribute points. Such an attribute appeared to be unusual for an ordinary divine talisman summoner like him. Of course, this unusual point was actually quite normal. As long as the other party did not pursue it further, it would not be a problem. However, he was afraid of getting to the bottom of things. That Zhong Shennan has personally experienced the small labyrinth cave. She can be said to be one of the parties involved in this incident. If the team annihilation of Team 8322 was really related to the follow-up of the small labyrinth cave, then she was definitely one of the people who couldn't be avoided. What I'm worried about now is that she'll notice my abnormality and list me as a target for investigation. Wu Wei was not afraid of Yuehua City's investigation. He was not afraid of being slanted. Well, although the white jade spider jade pendant was not very upright, the concealment of the golden finger was also very strong. Wu Wei had been through all sorts of tests over the years, but nothing had been detected. He wasn't afraid that he would find a cheat in this investigation. However, he still had something to worry about. He was worried that, after all, he was just an ordinary student who had not experienced much. If he were to be investigated, he might reveal some flaws. Even if they could safely get through Yuehua City, they would still be able to get through the investigation. However, with this investigation, he might be directly exposed. If there was really a mastermind behind this, then he would be exposed under their eyes. At that time, Wu Wei could not guarantee what he would encounter. If there's really a mastermind behind the scenes, then an organization that can easily destroy a village and seal off a map must be quite ruthless. They wouldn't talk about evidence. I reckon that as long as they suspect you, they'll directly capture you and torture you. At this point, Wu Wei felt as if he could already see the 10 great tortures being imposed on him. Skinning, cutting at the waist and so forth. The scene made Wu Wei shiver. No, I can't let this happen to me. However, Wu Wei could not do anything now. He could not possibly run to Zhong Shennan and beg her not to expose himself, right? This was simply an extremely stupid method. Originally, it was possible that the other party hadn't even noticed him, but he had jumped out directly once he went out. In other words, I can't do anything now and can only wait for their judgment. Upon realizing this, Wu Wei's expression turned even uglier. He could not accept this. I have to do something. Wu Wei lowered his head in deep thought. What should he do to make his current situation better? Now that things have come to this, the only thing I can do is to make myself stronger and raise my status. Only by becoming stronger will I have the power to protect myself in the face of all kinds of bad situations. Second, raising my status will allow me to face Yuehua City's investigation and the possible mastermind more easily. At this point, Wu Wei already had a rough idea in his mind. As he spoke, Wu Wei's gaze fell on the talisman-making basics that was not far away. Zhang Li's words came back to him. It seems that I need to put on the skin of a genius talisman master. In this case, I will need to put all my focus on talisman-making basics for the next few days. Wu Wei knew very well what Zhang Li's previous words meant. If he could perform well in front of the professor in a few days, he might become the professor's disciple. This was extremely helpful to the current Wu Wei. Divine Talisman Master, Divine Talisman Master. The core of the so-called Divine Talisman Master was, of course, the Divine Talisman. To obtain power and to break through, one needed to inscribe talismans. As for talismans, although they could be dropped from rune monsters, the drop rate was not high, especially for high-quality talismans. Therefore, he needed a talisman master. A talisman master could draw all kinds of talismans. Some of the talismans drawn by a talisman master could not only be of a higher grade than the original, but they could also have other abilities. The talismans drawn by talisman masters were easier to inscribe than the ones that were dropped. This created the supreme status of talisman masters. If Wu Wei could become the disciple of a talisman practitioner professor, and a genius disciple at that, Yuehua City wouldn't be investigating him anymore. In the absence of any substantial evidence, the most they could do was to ask Wu Wei for questioning in the name of assisting in the investigation. Wu Wei believed that even the possible mastermind behind the scenes would not dare to make a move against him. After all, killing an ordinary student and killing a talisman master's direct disciple were two completely different things. Therefore, Wu Wei had to grab hold of this opportunity. He tried his best to level up talisman-making basics. With this thought in mind, Wu Wei could not wait to pick up his book and read it. However, before he read the book, Wu Wei had one more thing to do, and that was to level up his little elf. Currently, the three conditions for the quality upgrade of the little elf had been met. The first was skill proficiency, and the third was meditation, which was 1 star. Now, only the second condition was left. Wu Wei had already prepared all the required materials, and in fact, he had helped the little guy level up. Wu Wei sealed the training room, then took out the rune book and released Ah Huang and the little elf. At the same time, he took out the fine-grade crocodile heart, earth elemental core, gator king's heart, and even the earth staff, which was one of the only 2 excellent grade items in Wu Wei's possession, and put it down without hesitation. Then, he beckoned to the drooling little fairy. "Come on, little elf, these are all yours. Eat them all." The little fairy, who was already drooling, flapped her little wings happily after getting Wu Wei's approval and jumped into the pile of items. She touched and kissed all over the items and played with them. The little fellow picked up the high-quality crocodile heart and started eating. At the same time, the data in front of Wu Wei's eyes started to refresh. 51/20, 52/20, 53/20. This little fellow's small body was like a bottomless pit. It ate the hearts that were similar to its own. And there was no bulge in her belly. Very quickly, the number reached 99/20. At this time, little Tian gave up on the other hearts and took out a heart that was bigger and brighter than the other fine-quality hearts. It was the big-headed crocodile's heart. As the heart entered his stomach, the number reached 100/20. It was 5 times more than the first condition. At this time, the little guy finally stopped and turned to look at the earth elemental core and the gator king's heart. After looking around, the little elf chose the gator king's heart and ate it in 2 or 3 bites. As the gator king's heart entered his stomach, a system notification immediately popped up on Wu Wei's side. "Your second origin, Earth Fairy, has met the upgrade conditions. Do you want to upgrade it?" At the same time, the fairy's body began to emit a bright light. Wu Wei realized that this little fellow was about to reach his limit. But he still didn't nod to confirm it, because at this time, the little guy had greedily reached out to the earth elemental core at the side, picked it up, and began to eat. This time, the little guy had a harder time eating. It took a lot of effort to finish the earth elemental core. After eating it, the greedy little guy even reached for the staff. It seemed like it wanted to eat the staff as well, but it was too late. Its little hand had yet to reach the staff, but its body was already shining with a bright light. Realizing the situation, Wu Wei decisively ordered, "Begin the upgrade." At the same time, a notification from his gold finger appeared before Wu Wei's eyes. "Your second origin has begun to upgrade. Please choose her upgrade route. 1 Earth Element. 2 Earth Fairy Princess. Chapter 105 to 105 Earth Fairy Princess 1. 105 Earth Fairy Princess 1. Choice, another choice. This was the second time he had to choose how to evolve the elf. Last time, it was the Earth Elf and the Mud Man leader. This time, it was the Earth Elemental and the Earth Fairy Princess. Which one should I choose? Wu Wei hesitated for a moment before quickly recalling the information on Earth Elemental and Earth Fairy Princess. Earth Elemental spirits are pure elemental life forms. The path of development is Earth Elemental Overlord, Earth Elemental Sovereign, and Earth Elemental King. It's a path with a lot of potential for development. To be honest, Wu Wei was quite tempted by this development route. Therefore, he chose the Earth Fairy Princess without much hesitation. Although the path of an Earth Elemental spirit is not bad, the change from a Earth Elemental elf to an Earth Elemental in one go is too big. It was the same as a husky turning into a Lion King. The little elf's information had already been recorded. Whether it's in the inner court's assessment or leveling up during this period of time, my second source has always been little spirits. It's too eye-catching to suddenly turn into the Earth element, so I'd better not. Moreover, the path of the Earth Fairy Princess is not necessarily worse than that of the Earth Elemental Fairy. After all, if the little elf were to transform into an Earth Elemental, most of the energy it absorbed would have to be put into the transformation, which would be too wasteful. Therefore, it's better to follow the current path. As Wu Wei spoke, he chose to sit down. At the same time, the light on the little spirit's body began to solidify. In the next second, the little spirit turned into a rune and returned to Wu Wei's runic book. With the return of the fairy, the power of feedback also began to flow from the rune book into Wu Wei's body. The surging feedback force sent Wu Wei unconscious once again. He didn't know how much time had passed while he was unconscious. Wu Wei only felt his eyes open and close. In the blink of an eye, a few hours had passed. The little fairy's evolution was completed, and Wu Wei had woken up. Wu Wei, who had just woken up, felt a little strange. It was as if the world had changed. He could feel that there was a mysterious power around him that was everywhere and very friendly to him. This force was more common underground. In addition, Wu Wei also felt an additional power in his mind, or more precisely, his spiritual space. It was a force that was similar to the spirit energy in his abdomen or dantian. Wu Wei squinted his eyes and immediately opened his attribute panel. Class, Divine Talisman Summoner. Strength, 4.5, 2, Vitality 4.9, 2, Spirit, 8.3, 2, Agility Spiritual Energy, 30. Spiritual Energy, 50. First Origin, Yellow Scarved Strongman, Yellow, Excellent, Level 18. Second Origin, Earth Fairy, Excellent Plus, Level 18. Skills Mastered, Pig Slaughtering Knife, Yellow Turban Iron Bull Stance, 2 stars, 231/3000, Basic Archery, 3 stars, Max Level. Heart of the Earth, 35/100, Earth Attribute Skill Consumption is reduced by 5%. The Illusion of Being Light, 2/5000. Life Skill, Gathering, 1 star, 4781/5000. Formation Master Skill. Bewitching Array, 1 star, 6/1000. Talisman Master Skill. The basics of rune making. Divine Soldier Seal equipped, Gator Fang Bao, fine, level 18, Gator King's Horn, excellent, level 20. His spirit had increased by 1.5, and his agility had increased by 1. In addition, there was an additional 50 points of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in this column and the 30 points that Ah Huang had given Wu Wei as a feedback for leveling up were incompatible. One was in his danshan, while the other was in his brain. They had nothing to do with each other. It's spiritual power again. If the previous spiritual power of Ah Huang was due to the yellow turban iron bull stance, then what's the reason for this spiritual power now? The heart of the earth. Wu Wei tried to use this spiritual energy, and it was the same as the one from the yellow turban iron bull stance. Wu Wei's spiritual energy could no longer be used on other skills. After trying it out, Wu Wei finally used it on the heart of the earth. Just as Wu Wei had expected, the heart of the earth could indeed activate this spiritual energy. However, it didn't seem to be of much use. After all, heart of the earth was different from the yellow turban iron bull pile. It seemed that this skill could only be passively cultivated. Even if he used those 50 points of spiritual energy, it only made Wu Wei more aware of the earth attribute energy in the surroundings, and nothing else seemed to have any effect. Wu Wei studied it for a while and put it aside for the time being. He raised his hand and took out the Book of Runes. As soon as the Book of Runes was opened, a small head popped out. The little elf that had finished evolving and leveling up couldn't wait to come out. After releasing the mischievous little fellow, Wu Wei sized him up and realized that he did not seem to be any different from before. Wait a minute, there was a difference. This little guy had a small crown on his head. The rest was basically nothing. The change was small, and Wu Wei was satisfied. This way, it wouldn't be eye-catching and wouldn't attract anyone's attention. Of course, that was only limited to the little fellow's appearance. If its attributes did not change, Wu Wei would not be satisfied. Wu Wei opened the little guy's attributes. Wu Wei's eyes narrowed when he saw the attributes. Chapter 106 to 106 Earth Fairy Princess 2. 106 Earth Fairy Princess 2. Second Origin Rune, Earth Fairy Princess. Quality, Superior Plus, 2 strips. First condition, consume 20 superior grade Earth attribute energy cores and 1 rare grade energy core. Condition 2, the heart of Gaia must reach 3 stars. Level, 18, 1%. Spirit, 14.1, 6, Agility, 4.9 Constitution, 1. Spiritual Energy, 150. Skills Mastered, Earth Escape, 1 star, 1/1000. Earth Control, January 2000, a new skill that combines Earth Transformation and Earth to Stone Transformation. It can change the nature of the Earth and control the Earth to attack within a certain range. Earth Nourishment, January 2000, the upgraded version of Earth Nourishment. As long as you are not more than 5 meters away from the ground, you can continue to receive the nourishment of the earth and recover 1% of your spiritual energy every minute. PS, can be activated on its own. Gravity Technique, 1/500, able to control gravity and enemies. Earth Fairy Summon, 1/1000, able to temporarily summon earth fairies to help with your work. Meditation : Heart of the Earth, 1 star, 1/1000, Earth attribute skills effects increase by 15%. Divine Weapon Rune, Earth Staff, level 19, Superior, Inferior, Fallen Mage Robe, level 11, Fine Quality. Looking at the little guy's attributes, Wu Wei couldn't help but gasp. This little guy's attributes were really awesome. Compared to before, it had upgraded 2 skills and gained 2 more skills. Currently, any of the skills on its attribute panel were quite powerful. At this time, the little guy had completely broken away from the situation where it could only be a support and an assistant. Now, It could become a very powerful combat force. When Wu Wei looked at the little fellow's attributes, the little fellow seemed to have understood what had happened. It felt like it had become stronger, so it was very excited. It chased after Ah Huang and used the new skill it had just learned. The little guy used a gravity technique with his left hand and suppressed Ah Huang, making it unable to move. With another earth control, a large amount of earth came from the training room and surrounded Ah Huang. The last summon of earth spirits summoned 4 spirits that were similar to the little fairy. The 5 little fairies flapped their wings and surrounded Ah Huang, their small fists hitting Ah Huang's body. Their soft fists, which probably wouldn't even kill a mosquito, landed on Ah Huang's body, causing it to scream in pain. Ah Huang hurriedly begged for mercy from the little fairy, saying that the little fairy was too strong and Ah Huang had no power to resist. Seeing Ah Huang begging for mercy, the little guy was satisfied and let go of Ah Huang. After being released, Ah Huang surrounded the little fairy and said a bunch of things that Wu Wei couldn't understand. However, even though he couldn't understand, he could guess that it was probably praising the little fairy. The little fairy's face was full of excitement, and she patted Ah Huang's shoulder with her little hand. He told Ah Huang to follow his little elf from now on. The little fairy will protect Ah Huang well. Looking at the little elf that had been tricked again, Wu Wei looked at its 14 points of spirit. It seems that intelligence has nothing to do with spiritual power. At this moment, the little fairy had already arrived in front of Wu Wei with a smug look on her face. She placed her hands on her hips. "Gigi, Wu Wei, little wisp, let's go and catch the bad fish. Little wisp has become so powerful now. Little wisp can catch many bad fish now." "Oh, really? Then let me see how powerful you are." Looking at the little fellow who was obviously a little too proud, Wu Wei looked at Ah Huang, who was beside him, with ill intentions. "Ah Huang, come over here, little guy. Let's practice." When Ah Huang heard this, his expression didn't change, but his thick eyebrows seemed to be a lot more worried. It was obvious that his master was going to tear apart his disguise. He looked at his master with some resentment. If he defeated the little fairy, he would not have a good life in the future. Wu Wei grinned. Of course, he knew this. At the same time, he also knew that if Ah Huang had a good life, he would probably not have a good life either. Therefore, he would have to live his own good days. The little fairy on the side didn't notice, or rather, she didn't understand the eye contact between Wu Wei and Ah Huang. When she saw that Wu Wei had asked Ah Huang to fight with her, she immediately said, "Gigi, Ah Huang can't do it, Ah Huang can't beat the little fairy." "Is that so?" Wu Wei squinted his eyes and asked. "Have you ever thought that Ah Huang was just letting you have your way?" As soon as he said this, the little fairy's eyebrows immediately furrowed. She was a proud person, so she would listen to Wu Wei's words. She told Ah Huang to come out on the spot and that she wanted to come back with Ah Huang. And so, the second round of battle between Ah Huang and the little fairy began. Just like last time, the little fairy attacked aggressively, using a gravity technique on Ah Huang's body. At the same time, he waved his little hand, and the soil on the ground surrounded Ah Huang as if it was alive. While the fairy was attacking, the 4 earth fairies she had summoned were not idle either. Wu Wei took a look and saw that the 4 earth spirits that the little fellow had summoned were not much different from high-quality spirits. Both of them had mastered 3 skills. One was soil transformation, and the other was turning soil into stone. These 2 skills seemed to be the standard, but the remaining skill was different for the 4 little guys. One was earth escape, one was earth spike, one was earth armor, and the last was petrification. When the little ones were controlling Ah Huang, the 4 little ones used change earth to stone together, instantly turning the soil surrounding Ah Huang into stone. It had to be said that this move had amazed Wu Wei. The effect of this control was extremely strong. Under normal circumstances, Ah Huang wouldn't be able to break free. Even if Ah Huang activated the yellow turban iron bull stance in the Reiki state, his strength would soar to 21 and he would not be able to withstand it. Without a doubt, this little fairy had really become stronger. And this was in the dormitory, where there was not much soil. If this was the crocodile swamp, Wu Wei believed that the power that this little guy could unleash would definitely be more terrifying. It could even exterminate the crocodile king by itself. Moreover, the little fairy could summon 4 little helpers. Wouldn't Wu Wei's efficiency in setting up formations and other things increase in the future? Wu Wei was more and more satisfied with the little fairy's performance. However, the problem was that Wu Wei was not very satisfied with the wisp's attitude. Seeing that Ah Huang had been controlled again, the little fairy was very proud. She proudly raised her little head at Wu Wei. Did you see that? Its little spirit was the strongest. How could it be proud? Wu Wei immediately said to Ah Huang, who was almost completely under control, "That's enough. Stop dawdling and end the battle quickly." Under Wu Wei's command, Ah Huang directly burst out and activated the spiritual power state yellow turban iron bull stance that he had not activated when he was fighting the Gator King. In an instant, Ah Huang's strength rose from 22 points to 42 points. A terrifying power exploded, instantly shattering the rocks around him. At the same time, it also caused a certain degree of backlash to the little one's skills. The 4 little ones that were summoned disappeared with a poochie sound. The fairy was even worse off. Its gravity, earth control, and earth fairy summoning skills were all backfired. The 3 forces of backlash hit the little fellow's head, making it buzz. By the time she reacted, Ah Huang's big knife was already on its small shoulder. Seeing this, the little fairy couldn't help but burst into tears. She cried so pitifully. It only felt that Wu Wei had gone too far. Ah Huang was so bad. When Ah Huang hit the bad fish, it didn't hit it as hard. "I'll leave it to you. Coax it?" On Wu Wei's side, he was particularly uncouth. As soon as he saw the little guy crying, he turned around and left without a word, leaving a mess for Ah Huang to settle. Based on Wu Wei's understanding of the little fellow, Ah Huang would not have a good life in the next few days. Chapter 107 to 107 Optimized Talisman. 107 Optimized Talisman. After betraying Ah Huang without any burden. Following that, Wu Wei welcomed some leisure time. Wu Wei spent all this time studying talisman making basics. He had the notes that Zhongli had recorded for him during her lecture. In addition, Zhongli had also sent him a voice recording. At first, Wu Wei thought that Zhongli had only sent him a recording of her lecture. After clicking on it, Wu Wei realized that in addition to Zhongli's lecture recordings, she also had recordings of her lectures for others. There were 4 in total. This made Wu Wei both surprised and happy. Wu Wei spent the rest of his time on the recording and notes. With the help of these recordings, Wu Wei's talisman making basics had reached 1 star in just 2 days. This progress had directly surpassed the talisman formation basics. However, Wu Wei had no choice but to stop his study. He had no choice. The books he had and the voice recording Zhongli gave him were the most basic ones. He had basically understood all of this. If he wanted to go further, it was impossible. It could only be said that it was very difficult. Thus, Wu Wei thought that he should stop talisman making basics here. Of course, Wu Wei wasn't trying to stop and learn. He just felt that it was time for him to turn his theory into practice. Hence, Wu Wei made a trip to the logistics department and bought a set of talisman making equipment. The equipment required to make a talisman was quite simple. There was a talisman pen, a bottle of talisman ink, and a stack of blank talisman paper. With that, he could start trying to make talismans. However, these 3 simple items had cost Wu Wei dozens of contribution points. Wolf hair pen, high quality, level 15. Description: a high quality talisman making pen. It can increase the success rate of talismans below level 15 by 10%. P.S. The premise is that you must be able to draw the talisman before it can take effect. Price, 50 contribution points. Level 0 Spiritual Talisman Inc. Description, able to draw talismans of level 10 and below. Price, 1 contribution per bottle, 1000 ml. P.S. You can probably draw about 300 grade 0 talismans. Level 0 Talisman Paper. Description, able to draw talismans of level 10 and below. Price, 1 contribution point per stack, 300 pieces. Just a wolf hair brush alone cost 50 contribution points. Wu Wei bought 5 bottles of grade 0 Spiritual Talisman ink, and 5 stacks of grade 0 Spiritual Talisman paper. He spent a total of 60 contribution points. After bringing them home, Wu Wei began his first attempt at drawing talismans. As for drawing talismans, Talisman Making Basics didn't record any detailed methods of drawing talismans, but it did write down the methods. In addition to how to draw a spirit talisman, it also wrote the most important technique for a talisman master, which was the copying and analysis of talismans. The so-called talisman master making talismans actually started from copying the talismans that dropped. As a talisman practitioner apprentice, Wu Wei's first course was also copying. Only a talisman master who was good at copying could become a good talisman master. This was also why Talisman Making Basics didn't teach any basic talisman drawing methods. By the way, the homework for the study of talisman making was to try to copy and draw a talisman by himself. When it came to drawing or copying his first talisman, Wu Wei wasn't as good as Gao Liyuan. He chose the most basic grade 0 talisman, the torch talisman. That's right, it was the torch talisman that cost 1 spirit talisman and 5 pieces. If the main goal was to make money, drawing this type of torch talisman would undoubtedly be a huge loss. After all, a bottle of talisman ink and a stack of blank talisman paper cost 2 contribution points. He could only draw 300 talismans in total. In other words, Wu Wei's cost of drawing a torch talisman was 0.66 spirit talisman. If he successfully drew one, he would only earn 0.2, and he would lose 0.4 spirit talismans for one talisman. However, he had no choice. He was not even a newbie. This was the only way he could enter the sect. Not only him, but almost all the talisman masters had to suffer this loss. Wu Wei was also prepared to suffer a huge loss. In the dormitory, in the cultivation room, Wu Wei first took out a torch talisman and studied it repeatedly. He silently analyzed the torch talisman in his heart. The torch talisman only has 2 spirit talisman nodes. The difficulty of drawing lies in these 2 spirit talisman nodes and the overflowing lines. If I'm familiar with them in advance, I should be able to do it more easily. At this moment, Wu Wei brought out all the energy and spirit he had when he was learning Heart of the Earth. Perhaps it was because Wu Wei had accumulated enough experience while analyzing the Heart of the Earth, but the torch talisman in front of him, which only had 2 talisman nodes, was quite easy to analyze. In just half an hour or so, Wu Wei had finished his analysis. However, Wu Wei didn't dare to be careless. After all, having the brain and having the hands were 2 different things. It was hard to say if he could do it on paper. Thus, Wu Wei focused his mind and calmed his qi, adjusting his essence, energy, and spirit to their peak. Only then did he truly begin to draw his first spirit talisman. Sure enough, it wasn't an easy task to get it from the brain. The first talisman node, failed to be drawn. The first talisman node on the second talisman was successfully drawn, but it failed when it transitioned to the second talisman node. The third one was successful when it was used to transition to the second spirit talisman node, but the second node failed. On the 4th page, the second node was successfully drawn, but there was a problem at the end. Chapter 108 to 108 Optimized Talisman 2. 108 Optimized Talisman 2. Then, it was the fifth card. Finally, Wu Wei didn't make any more mistakes and successfully drew the torch talisman. However, the drawing was not considered a success yet. There were still two final steps. One was to point the spirit, the other was to seal it. Spirit point was to successfully activate the talisman, while spirit seal was to keep the talisman's energy in a state of balance. These two steps were both available in talisman making basics. But they were all quite difficult. However, just like before, Wu Wei only failed once before he successfully drew the torch talisman on his 8th attempt. You've successfully drawn the torch talisman. You've mastered the drawing of the torch talisman. 1/5. At the same time that the torch talisman was successfully drawn, two golden finger prompts appeared in front of Wu Wei one after another. The first one was normal, but the second one was out of Wu Wei's expectations. This was the shortest leveling progress that Wu Wei had ever seen. How could Wu Wei tolerate such a short one swaying in front of him? And so, he continued to draw runes. After the first successful attempt, Wu Wei was very familiar with the next steps. Soon, he finished drawing 4 more torch talisman. After spending a few talismans, he finally earned one. As the 5th talisman was successfully drawn, Wu Wei's mind became clear. At the same time, the outline of the torch talisman appeared in front of his eyes. At this moment, Wu Wei looked at the silhouette in front of him again and suddenly felt that it was a little unfamiliar. No, he wasn't unfamiliar with it. Wu Wei felt that the nodes and lines of the torch talisman could be changed in other ways. However, before Wu Wei could think about it, the outline of the torch talisman in front of him suddenly disappeared. Wu Wei was caught off guard. Immediately after, Wu Wei noticed that the torch talisman skill in his attribute panel had changed from 5/5 to 0/5. Why is this completely different from a formation? What does it mean? Does that mean that if the progress bar is full, it doesn't directly upgrade the talisman, but instead, it gives me a chance to look at the torch talisman from another perspective? If I can understand it, then the torch talisman can be upgraded. If I can't, then I'll have to start all over again. This was the first time Wu Wei had encountered such a situation. Even when he was upgrading the Lost Array, he didn't encounter such a situation. However, Wu Wei did not reject such a situation at all. He might even like this way of leveling up more. For example, when his archery skills were upgraded all of a sudden, he did not feel a sense of participation. He also felt insecure. He was afraid that one day, his cheat would lose its effect and everything he had would disappear. In comparison, this way of letting him have a sense of participation gave him a greater sense of security. Since that's the case, I'll give it a try. As he spoke, Wu Wei continued to draw the torch talisman. However, the second time he tried, Wu Wei was no longer just drawing. In addition to drawing the torch talisman, he was also thinking about the scene he had just seen in his mind. He was thinking about how to change the situation when he entered the same situation again with the remaining memory he had. This half-hearted method caused Wu Wei's subsequent talismans to fail repeatedly. However, Wu Wei would rather fail than stop his half-hearted behavior. As Wu Wei tried again and again, he finally succeeded in drawing the torch talisman on his 10th try. The successful drawing this time not only increased the progress to 1/5, but it also gave Wu Wei an idea on how to optimize the spiritual talisman. Next, Wu Wei worked harder. Soon, he reached 5/5 again, and Wu Wei entered the state of enlightenment again. This time, Wu Wei's performance was much better than the previous time. He pointed out a node that he thought was suitable, but he failed. Wu Wei wanted to point at a second node, but when the time was up, he failed to optimize the torch talisman again, and the upgrade failed as well. However, Wu Wei was not dejected. Instead, he was full of energy. On the third try, Wu Wei pointed out 3 third nodes, but he still failed. On the fourth try, Wu Wei pointed out 6 third nodes, but he still failed. Finally, on the fifth try, Wu Wei managed to point out the third node, but he still failed at the end. After the fifth successful attempt, Wu Wei quickly reached the sixth attempt. On the sixth attempt, Wu Wei successfully wrapped up the process. As Wu Wei finished his work, a notification from the golden finger appeared before his eyes. You've successfully optimized the torch talisman. Your torch talisman drawing skill has been upgraded. The current level is 1 star. Wu Wei didn't even look at the golden finger prompt. Instead, he immediately drew his optimized torch talisman. As the torch talisman was successfully drawn, the number 1/10 appeared before Wu Wei's eyes again. However, Wu Wei's gaze was completely focused on the torch talisman that he had just drawn. Rune, high quality torch rune. Level, 5. Description: this is an optimized torch talisman based on the basic torch talisman. It shines brighter and lasts longer. This attribute, it could be said to be quite trashy, not much better than an ordinary torch talisman. If Wu Wei were to sell it, the price would not be much higher than that of an ordinary torch talisman. It could be said that it was also a money-losing item. However, Wu Wei really loved the high-quality torch talisman in front of him. This was because he had worked hard to optimize this high-quality torch talisman, and it was also a stepping stone for Wu Wei to become a genius talisman practitioner. Wu Wei believed that as long as he took out this talisman, he would definitely be able to impress that professor. However, it wasn't enough to just look at it. Wu Wei felt that he had to be even more outstanding. There's still time. I still have hope. If I can improve the torch talisman to a fine quality before that professor sees me, then my name as a genius talisman apprentice will be secured. Although it was Wu Wei's dream to be invincible, there were times when he wanted to be high profile just so he could better hide himself. With this thought in mind, Wu Wei continued to use all his power and began to charge toward the high-quality torch talisman. On Wu Wei's side, as he was charging towards the high-quality torch talisman, what he didn't know was that someone was looking at his information in the Bright Moon Hotel. Student ID, 9527. First origin rune, Yellow-Scarved Strongman, Superior. Second origin rune, Earth Fairy, Superior. Time to enter the inner court, November 3rd. Admission assessment score, first place in grade S. The main examiner commented, "He's brave and resourceful, but he doesn't seem to be good at interpersonal relationships." Zhong Shennan pouted when she saw the information. She felt terrible no matter how she looked at it, especially when she saw Wu Wei's photo. She recalled how she had been chased away by Black not long ago. She hated Wu Wei even more no matter how she looked at him. After that, Zhong Shennan found the investigation report of 8322. This time, Zhong Shennan's eyes stopped on a line of words. Before Team 8322 started their mission, they met up with Wu Wei to gather funds. Wu Wei gave Team 8322 a robust body talisman. Zhong Shennan's eyes lit up when she saw this line of words. They were connected. She only suspected that Wu Wei had something to do with that incident. After all, he was present in the cave of the small labyrinth, and his strength had increased so much recently. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that Wu Wei was somewhat suspicious. So, he came over to check on Wu Wei's information. He didn't expect to get such a pleasant surprise. What are those legendary venomous insects doing? They didn't even notice such an obvious clue. While Zhong Shennan was ridiculing the Bright Moon Hotel, he almost immediately stood up and wanted to find Wu Wei to ask him about the situation. Just as Zhong Shennan was about to stand up, a cold voice sounded from the side, "I'd advise you not to. I'll update around 9 in the future." Chapter 109 to 109 Superior Quality Medicinal Drug 1. 109 Superior Quality Medicinal Drug 1. In the reference room of the Bright Moon Hotel. Following that clear and cold voice, a light yellow figure walked in. If Wu Wei was here, he would definitely be able to recognize the person who walked in. It was the Lu Xiaoyu from the real world. On Zhong Shennan's side, Lu Xiaoyu suddenly appeared in front of him. He didn't seem to expect her to appear in the inner court. What made her even more puzzled was Lu Xiaoyu's attitude toward her. He didn't have the respect he had in the real world at all, and there was a faint sense of vigilance between his brows. "What are you doing here?" Zhong Shennan frowned. "Senior Zhong, I was transferred to the inner court not long ago to cooperate with the investigation of Team 8322. You? The investigation of the 8322 team incident?" Zhong Shennan was stunned. He didn't know what Yuehua City was doing. Why would they transfer someone from the outside? And it was Lu Xiaoyu, whose rank wasn't very high, to cooperate with the investigation of Team 8322's incident. Zhong Shennan found it a little hard to understand. In response to Zhong Shennan's doubts, Lu Xiaoyu lightly replied, "I've already written a report on this matter to the higher UPS when the Dryad Forest incident happened. After the cave in the small labyrinth, I wrote another report. Maybe after the higher UPS saw my report, they felt that I was suitable for this project, so they transferred me to the inner court." Zhong Shennan pouted and said subconsciously, "Is that so? Which part of the investigation are you currently in charge of?" As soon as he said this, Lu Xiaoyu became silent. The atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward. Only then did Zhong Shennan react. She seemed to have asked a question that she should not have asked. "Did I break the rules with this question?" "It's not against the rules. You can ask and I can tell you. Currently, I'm mainly in charge of investigating any possible redemption members." Speaking of this, Lu Xiaoyu paused and looked at Zhong Shennan. She hesitated for a moment before adding another sentence. "You are currently my third target." Zhong Shennan's expression changed as soon as she heard this. Good Lord, she was still investigating Wu Wei, and now she was being suspected. "You suspect me?" "It's not really suspicion. I'm just checking for possible targets. By the way, my first target was myself, and my second target was the one in your hand." Zhong Shennan was stunned. He looked at Wu Wei's information in his hand. "Have you guys been in contact with him?" "No. Considering that there might be members of Redemption in Yuehua City, rashly coming into contact with them might bring him unnecessary trouble, we did not contact student Wu Wei. However, in the past few days, we've already used all the authority we have to thoroughly investigate Wu Wei. We can now basically confirm that Wu Wei is not a member of Redemption. What happened to Team 8322 had nothing to do with him. In addition, this matter might not be over yet. So we don't want you to investigate him rashly and disturb him. It will bring him unnecessary trouble." "Unnecessary trouble?" Zhong Shennan narrowed his eyes and said, "You mean, you're worried that salvation will cause trouble for him? Wasn't that even better? It's a good time to lure that group of people out and catch them all in one fell swoop." As soon as Zhong Shennan said this, Lu Xiaoyu's eyes became colder. "Senior Zhong, please mind your words. Your way of thinking is very dangerous. Please don't use your classmates as bait. You don't have the authority to do so. Also, don't forget that Yuehua City's existence is to provide them with a safe environment to grow up in. We shouldn't use them as bait and let them fall into danger that we can't guarantee." "What are you saying?" Zhong Shennan's expression changed, and he was about to say something. But Lu Xiaoyu didn't give her a chance. "Also, Senior Zhong, your biggest task right now isn't to keep an eye on Wu Wei, but to help us complete the investigation of your suspicion. Please follow me." As she said this, Lu Xiaoyu made an inviting gesture. He politely invited Zhong Shennan to an interrogation room. Wu Wei's dorm. Wu Wei had no idea that someone had saved him a lot of trouble. He was now fully focused on the optimization and drawing of the torch talisman. It took Wu Wei 2 days to level up talisman making basics to 1 star, more than half an hour to successfully draw the torch talisman, and about 3 hours to optimize the torch talisman to high quality. However, Wu Wei had to spend a little more time to advance further. After 2 days of hard work, Wu Wei still did not manage to produce a high-quality torch talisman. The main thing was that the high-quality torch talisman had a lot more nodes than he had expected. Well, it wasn't a lot, just 1 more. Originally, Wu Wei thought that 4 talisman nodes would be enough, but it turned out that he needed 5. Although there was only 1 more talisman node, the difficulty of the problem he had to face was not increased by 1/5, but directly multiplied. As such, even after 2 days of hard work, Wu Wei was still unable to make a high-quality torch talisman. There were some problems that he could not solve. This was mainly because his talisman making basics was too weak, only 1 star. However, he had no other choice. He did not have any further knowledge on hand, and the logistics department did not sell it. Chapter 110 to 110 Superior Quality Medicinal Drugs 2. 110 Superior Quality Medicinal Drugs 2. If he wanted to start, he could only learn from Zhongli and the others. Without any basic knowledge, Wu Wei could only fight to the death with a stupid method. This was very taxing on the mind and energy. Wu Wei, who had failed for 2 days, was depressed by the repeated failures. Just as Wu Wei was feeling depressed and having a headache, dong dong dong, a series of timid knocks came from the door. At the same time, it temporarily pulled Wu Wei out of his depression and headache. It was Little Black. Well, Wu Wei could tell who was knocking just by hearing the knocking. As expected, Wu Wei opened the door. Standing outside was Little Black, who was holding a medicine bottle and putting up a sign. The spirit talisman pill has been refined. The words on the sign gave people a feeling of depression. Wu Wei's eyes lit up when he saw it. It seemed that this time, it was settled. As expected, when Wu Wei's eyes fell on Little Black's medicine bottle, the pill's attributes were revealed. Pill, talisman pill. Description: it's not hard to tell from its grade that it's of much higher quality than the average high-quality spirit talisman pill. However, please don't be in a hurry to praise this alchemy room. After all, using superior quality materials to refine such a pill was something that an alchemist could do with his hands. Well, don't look at the description of a pill refining room and having a lot of hands. However, this was the only one that Little Black had managed to make after 4 whole days and a large number of superior grade materials. After finally succeeding once, she immediately took it and shared her joy with Wu Wei. But at this time, she remembered the materials she had wasted and immediately became nervous. He was a little worried that Wu Wei would be angry. However, not only was Wu Wei not angry, he even happily accepted the pill. He even went to the alchemy room with Little Black and pounced into Blackie's alchemy furnace. He was very careful and meticulous in picking out all the dregs in the alchemy furnace. Wu Wei even wanted to hug and kiss some of them that he could not. Little Black was dumbfounded by this scene. It could not understand what Wu Wei was doing. She did not know how precious the medicinal dregs were, so she could not understand Wu Wei's actions. Herbal dregs that can purify spiritual energy. Rarity, superior plus. Description: herbal dregs that can purify spiritual energy and increase spiritual energy. After taking it, it can increase one's spiritual energy. The side effect was that after taking it, his internal organs would feel as if they were being cut by knives. In addition, the purified spiritual energy needed to be guided. This was the nature of the dregs in Little Black's elixir furnace. The medicinal dregs allowed Wu Wei to see the hope of increasing his spiritual power. It must be known that his current 30 points of spiritual energy could only allow him to burst out for 1 second. If he could increase it a little, even if it was only for 1 second, it would be a huge improvement for him. How could Wu Wei not want such a treasure? After cleaning the entire alchemy furnace, Wu Wei hurried back to the cultivation room. He carefully poured out about 1/30 of the medicinal dregs and gulped them down in one go. As soon as the herbal dregs entered his stomach, Wu Wei immediately felt the surrounding spiritual energy go berserk and rush toward his body. At the same time, his internal organs started to hurt. It was as if a knife was being used to stir it, and it was extremely painful. Fortunately, Wu Wei had already taken a lot of Little Black's medicine, so he had a certain level of tolerance to the side effects and could withstand them. However, he could still stabilize it, but the spiritual energy was raging in his body, as if it could not find an outlet to vent and could only accumulate inside. Seeing that he was about to explode from the spiritual energy, Wu Wei gritted his teeth and began to practice the yellow turban iron bowl stance. As Wu Wei struggled to get into the yellow turban iron bowl stance, he adjusted his spiritual energy bit by bit and finally completed a full cycle of cultivation. The spirit qi in Wu Wei's body seemed to have found a way and knew what to do next. It started to follow the qi circulation of the yellow turban iron bowl stance. As the spiritual energy in Wu Wei's body circulated, the spiritual energy in his body was purified bit by bit. The effect of the medicine lasted for more than 3 hours. Wu Wei had completed more than 100 cycles in the 3 hours. When the spiritual qi in his body completed the last qi circulation, it completely turned into spiritual energy and fused into Wu Wei's danshan. The infusion of the spirit qi caused Wu Wei's spirit energy value to increase from 30 to 35, an increase of 5 points. In addition, Wu Wei's proficiency in the yellow turban iron bowl stance had increased by 100 points. In other words, if Wu Wei ate all the dregs, his spiritual energy would soar to 180 points, and his proficiency in the yellow scarf iron bowl stance would also soar to 3,000 points. This was a terrifying amount of profit. 180 points of spiritual energy would allow Wu Wei to burst out with his spiritual energy for at least 6 seconds. More importantly, this round of cultivation seemed to have tempered Wu Wei's body. However, his attributes had not increased yet, so he could not confirm it. But no matter what, Blackie's dregs were really divine medicine. However, Wu Wei was not surprised. It wasn't that he didn't care about the effects of the herbal dregs, but that he was still in the middle of another effect of the herbal dregs. The pain that Wu Wei had suffered while he was cultivating could be described as being cut into 1,000 pieces. He seemed to have a kind of tenacity, a kind of talent, and could endure pain. The more pain he was in, the more he could concentrate. Previously, Wu Wei's mind had been focused on the yellow turban iron bowl stance. When the effects of the medicine ended and the yellow turban iron bowl trance stopped working, Wu Wei's highly focused state of mind did not collapse just like that. On the contrary, it became even more focused. In this state, Wu Wei felt his thoughts become extremely active. At this time, Wu Wei didn't need to worry about the yellow turban iron bowl pile anymore. Therefore, he focused on the optimization of the torch talisman. Wu Wei had only wanted to give it a try and did not have much hope. He did not expect the results to be so good. In this state, all kinds of strange and wonderful ideas came to his mind. Unfortunately, Wu Wei was unable to put his ideas into practice. Therefore, Wu Wei quickly came out of that state. His mind was blank, and he felt like there was something, but also nothing. Wu Wei's eyes narrowed as he gritted his teeth. Just this state alone won't do. I have to add the talisman's optimized state as well. As he spoke, Wu Wei took action and drew 9 optimized versions of the torch talisman. He stuck the last one and did not melt. Then, Wu Wei took out 1/30 of the medicinal dregs and consumed them. Soon, another 3 hours passed. Wu Wei once again gained 5 spiritual energy points and 100 skill proficiency points. But at this moment, Wu Wei had no time to care about this. As soon as the effects ended, Wu Wei immediately drew the last high-quality torch talisman on the table that he had prepared. With the formation of the 10th high-quality torch talisman, Wu Wei's brain went boom and he entered a special state of enlightenment. In this state, Wu Wei's gains were huge. In a spurt of energy, he finished the high-quality version of the torch talisman that he had been thinking about for 2 days. After exiting this state, Wu Wei directly placed the premium version of the torch talisman on the paper. It was very smooth, and it was almost over in one go. Very quickly, a talisman that was much more profound than an ordinary torch talisman was formed under Wu Wei's pen. A golden finger notification also appeared in front of Wu Wei's eyes. You've successfully drawn a fine-grade torch talisman. Your torch talisman drawing has leveled up. It's currently at 2 stars. Rune, torch rune. Level, 10. Description: this is a high-quality torch talisman. It can control the brightness of the torch and the direction of the light. If you want to, you can even make the torch light burst out in an instant. Looking at the attributes, Wu Wei was a little disappointed at first, but then, he could not help but have a bold idea. Can you release all the light in an instant? Then should I use it as a flash bomb? With this thought in mind, Wu Wei stretched out his hand and directly tried it. In the next second, the torch talisman bloomed, and an unbelievably bright light bloomed in front of Wu Wei's eyes. In the next second, Wu Wei was rolling on the ground. My eyes, my eyes. Chapter 111 to 111 Ambush Attack. 111 Ambush Attack. When he used the high-quality torch talisman, Wu Wei did not close his eyes on purpose. He wanted to try the effect of flash. What was the result? Well, the effect was outstanding. Wu Wei was blinded by the light, but fortunately, it was only temporary. About 10 minutes later, Wu Wei's vision gradually recovered, but he still felt a stinging pain in his eyes. This lasted for an hour before it ended. Wu Wei had really given himself a hard time this time. However, it was worth it. Wu Wei had used his own bitter experience to prove that the idea of using the torch talisman as a flash bomb was feasible. Caught off guard, it would definitely be of great use. At the same time, this also meant that Wu Wei's talisman making could leave the stage of being a loss. Wu Wei would be able to profit from selling the high-quality torch talisman. For example, the level 10 robust body talisman cost 14 contribution points each, and the cheapest one cost 10 contribution points each. Wu Wei felt that it was unrealistic to sell this high-quality torch talisman for 10 contribution points, but it shouldn't be a problem to sell it for 5 contribution points, right? High-quality spiritual talismans were harder to draw. Currently, Wu Wei could only draw about 5 of them in an hour. He could get 80 to 100 cards in a day. If he counted 80 cards and multiplied 80 by 5, Wu Wei could get 400 contribution points a day. Wu Wei became excited after he calculated. He quickly took this high-quality torch talisman and ran to the logistics department. In the end, when Wu Wei went to the logistics department and expressed his intention to sell this high-quality torch talisman to the logistics department, the logistics department gave him a price that would cause him to have a brain hemorrhage. 50 talismans. That's right, it wasn't 10 contribution points but 50 talismans, which was only 0.5 contribution points. 50 spiritual talismans. Why? When Wu Wei heard the price, he was so excited that he slammed the table. Take a good look at this. This is a level 10 fine quality torch talisman. Other fine quality talismans of the same level start at 10 contribution points at the very least, and you're telling me that your logistics department is only willing to pay 50 talismans for this? Aren't you bullying an honest man? This student, don't be so agitated. Listen to me. The young lady from the logistics department comforted Wu Wei gently and explained to him, indeed, your talisman is indeed a level 10 talisman, and it's indeed of high quality. But the question is, Do you think any of the students would choose to engrave the torch talisman? Wu Wei's mouth twitched when he heard this. He suddenly realized that he had nothing to say. The reason why the price of a spiritual talisman was so high, or rather, the greatest value of a spiritual talisman, was not in the effect of the spiritual talisman at all, but in the carving. As for a spiritual talisman like the torch talisman, even if it was of high quality, as long as one's brain wasn't out of control, they probably wouldn't be willing to carve it. After all, this thing's main function was to light up the place. As for the effects of the flashbang that Wu Wei had developed, this thing was actually very easy to restrain. Once you closed your eyes, you would have no way to do anything. Therefore, not to mention others, even Wu Wei himself would not be willing to record this thing. Since there was no value in carving, the value of the torch talisman naturally plummeted. Under such circumstances, it was reasonable for the logistics department to be willing to pay 50 talismans. However, now that it was reasonable, Wu Wei's income would drop from 400 contribution points to 40 contribution points. This steep drop was a little too exciting. Moreover, if it was only 40 contribution points, it did not seem to be worth Wu Wei drawing for 20 hours a day. He could earn more than 40 contribution points just by going around the crocodile swamp. As a result, Wu Wei's dream of becoming rich was immediately aborted before it even started. This made Wu Wei extremely depressed. Wu Wei, who had returned home, was no longer in the mood to continue making talismans. After all, he couldn't just earn money, but the quality had already evolved to fine grade. It would be too difficult for Wu Wei to do anything with his current knowledge. Moreover, it might not be a good thing if he really made a superior grade torch talisman. Going too far was as bad as not enough. Therefore, Wu Wei stopped here and waited for Zhang Li's news. However, waiting was never an easy task. Wu Wei couldn't stay idle either. He waited at home for less than a day, but Wu Wei could not stay any longer. The main thing was that he couldn't do anything now. Although there was superior grade medicinal dregs, Wu Wei realized that his body could not take it after eating 2 portions of it in a row. He could not eat a third portion in a short period of time. The corresponding yellow turban iron bowl stance could not be cultivated either. As for the other skills, he couldn't learn the runic formation foundation because he didn't have enough knowledge. He was stuck in the basic archery skill, and he couldn't train the gathering skill. The only thing he could train was the heart of the earth. After training for a whole day, his head was buzzing. As for light illusion, it worked like a fool. Wu Wei only needed to maintain the supply of spirit energy and didn't need to worry about anything else. With this, Wu Wei really had nothing to do. This won't do. I have nothing to do anyway. Why don't I go to Crocodile Swamp and take a look? It's been 4 or 5 days. Even if the Gator King doesn't respawn, it's not bad to get some high-quality gator. Wu Wei's decision was firmly supported by both Ah Huang and Wisp. The former was tormented by the little fairy these few days, while the latter was tired of tormenting Ah Huang and had long wanted to go out and have fun. Chapter 112 to 112 Ambush Attack 2. 112 Ambush Attack 2. As such, the 3 of them immediately used the Yuehua City token to teleport to the spot that Wu Wei had marked in the crocodile swamp. As soon as Wu Wei was teleported away, the door of an office in the Moon Tower in Yuehua City was pushed open. A tall and sturdy man walked in. Li Changqing, who was reading various documents in the office, reported, "Boss, there's movement. That kid went to Crocodile Swamp." Li Changqing raised his eyebrows when he heard the news. "It's not easy. It's been a few days, and he's finally out. Let's inform the others and act according to the plan." Li Changqing gave the order, but the burly man did not leave immediately. Looking at the burly man who was still standing still, Li Changqing raised his eyebrows. "Is there anything else?" "Boss, didn't team leader Lu already tell us not to disturb that kid?" When the burly man didn't mention Lu Xiaoyu, Li Changqing immediately raised his eyebrows and slammed the table. You guys just listen to her? What is she? She is just a little girl who only knew how to write and shout slogans. What did she know? Don't bother about her. We'll act according to our plan. If she dares to say anything, I'll handle it. Seeing that his boss was angry, the burly man didn't dare to dawdle and quickly retreated. On the other side, Wu Wei, who had just arrived at the crocodile swamp, frowned. There were people coming from the crocodile swamp. Wu Wei had just teleported over, and they had also teleported over, just a few minutes later than him. Unlike Wu Wei, who had set the teleportation point on the periphery, they were directly placed in the depths of the swamp. Wu Wei had seen them teleport over from a distance. This was a rare sight. Wu Wei had been in the crocodile swamp for more than half a month, and this team was the first one he had seen grinding here. Wu Wei looked at their configuration, and it was not a very common one. 3 Divine Talisman Mages and 2 Divine Talisman Warriors. As soon as this small team arrived, they immediately set off for the depths of the crocodile swamp. Wu Wei looked at the direction they were heading. It should be in the direction of the Gator King's territory. Could it be that this small team was here to attack the Gator King? When he came up with this conjecture, Wu Wei was a little unhappy for a moment. Gator King was actually stealing his monster. However, he quickly realized that the boss Gator King was not unique to his family. It was just lying there. If he could farm it, so could others. At this thought, Wu Wei became even more unhappy. The little elf on the side was also unhappy. It had been holding back its power today to kill the bad fish, but now that it saw someone else in Crocodile Swamp trying to steal its monster, it couldn't do anything. Wu Wei, they're trying to steal our bad fish. Let's beat them up and chase them away. Who taught you to beat people away so easily? Wu Wei turned his head to look at the simple and honest-looking Ah Huang. He received an innocent and honest smile. Why did you chase them away? They'll do what they want, and we'll do what we want. Besides, you can't beat people up here. There are surveillance cameras. Let's go. Wu Wei retracted his gaze from the small team and patted Little Wisp to educate him. Then, he led Little Wisp and the others deeper into the swamp in a different direction from the small team. Along the way, the little fairy was very active. Like a derelict husky, he plunged into the quagmire. It looked exactly the same as the first time this little guy came to Crocodile Swamp. However, unlike the first time, no crocodile could speak loudly in front of it this time. Whenever a crocodile appeared beside her, this little guy would directly use earth control to kill it. In this environment, the little fairy's control of the earth was terrifying. It could directly control the soil and pour it into the crocodile's mouth and nose, killing it. Ordinary crocodiles were nothing more than bollocks in front of the little fairy. The little fairy could be easily killed. However, Wu Wei also noticed that the experience gained from killing a normal crocodile did not even increase by 0.1%. In other words, as the sprite's quality increased, the gap in experience points needed to level up would also increase. It might not be able to level up even if it killed thousands of normal crocodiles. Wu Wei was no longer interested in the materials from the normal crocodiles, even though they were of excellent quality and 4 to 5 hearts could be exchanged for 1 contribution point. However, it took him several minutes to collect a heart. Wouldn't it be great if he had the time to draw the torch talisman? Therefore, along the way, Wu Wei did not collect any light spots unless they were dropped by the crocodiles. As Wu Wei and Little Elf's strength increased, the drop rate from killing the crocodiles seemed to have decreased. In the past, they could barely get 1 light spot if they killed 7 or 8 of them. Now, they could only get 1 light spot if they killed 20 or 30 of them. The drop in profits was quite serious. It wasn't just the normal crocodiles that were like this. In the depths of the crocodile swamp, when Little Elf farmed high-quality crocodiles, the situation was similar. Originally, almost every one of them could drop a light spot. Now, it took 4 to 5, or even 7 to 8 of them to drop a light spot. The EXP had also barely dropped to 0.1% to 0.2% for one. The drop rate, the experience, and the rewards made Wu Wei shake his head. Thinking about the team that had just gone in the direction of the Gator King, Wu Wei could not help but shake his head. Chapter 113 to 113 Ambush 3. 113 Ambush 3. It seems that I have to change the map. This map is no longer suitable for me. Just as Wu Wei was thinking of changing the map, a roar suddenly rang out. Wu Wei immediately turned to look at the Gator King's territory. He recognized it. Wasn't that the Gator King's roar? It really refreshed. It refreshes every 5 days? That's pretty fast. Wu Wei suddenly felt that he could take a break by changing the map. At the very least, if he could come over every 5 days, it would be best for him to come over once. After all, the first condition for Ah Huang was to kill 20 excellent grade enemies, and the little elf needed to devour at least 20 excellent grade energy cores. If there was a fixed grinding spot here that could be used once every 5 days, Wu Wei would definitely not let it go. With that in mind, Wu Wei began to feel sorry for the Crocodile King that had been killed by that team. After all, that was at least 100 contribution points. I don't know if they'll be able to farm it. If they can't kill him, I'll wait for them to leave before I go and kill Gator King. Wu Wei looked in the direction of the Gator King as he spoke. However, even though he said that, Wu Wei felt that he didn't have much hope. Since they dared to rush over to the Gator King, they must be confident. The possibility of picking up a bargain was not high. However, what Wu Wei did not expect was that the following development was somewhat beyond his expectations. Another roar came from the Gator King's position. Immediately after, a stream of light that was supposed to be flying towards the sky flew towards Wu Wei and the others at an angle, as if it had been hit. Wu Wei's expression changed when he saw the ray of light. He recognized it at a glance. That stream of light was called the Flowing Light Talisman. This thing had another name among the students, and that was the Rescue Talisman. It can be released when in danger to ask for help. It should have been aiming for the sky, and it should have been hit by the Gator King. They're in danger. Upon seeing the streak of light, Wu Wei immediately reacted. He didn't think much about it, he just wanted to save someone and kill a monster. Without a word, Wu Wei led Ah Huang and the little fairy straight in the direction of the Gator King. Wu Wei and the others had been in the crocodile swamp for more than half a month, so they knew the terrain like the back of their hands. Soon, they arrived at the edge of the Gator King's territory. It was only when they arrived that Wu Wei realized that the team's situation was more dangerous than he had expected. Even though Wu Wei had already rushed over, he was still a step too late. The 5-man team that had charged in valiantly just now had already lost 4 of their members. The last Divine Talisman expert was still running for his life, and his condition was extremely bad. His body was covered in blood, and his face was extremely pale. It seemed that he would not be able to hold on any longer. However, he did not dare to stop at all and ran in the direction of Wu Wei. However, the Gator King was nowhere to be seen, as if it had used an underground escape. Upon seeing this, Wu Wei's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly led Ah Huang and the others to meet the student, wanting to save him. The other student also saw Wu Wei. The instant the dying man saw Wu Wei, his eyes exploded with an intense light, and the corners of his mouth curled up into an unfathomable smile. He called out to Wu Wei for help, "Fellow student, save me." As he shouted, the Divine Talisman expert ran towards Wu Wei. Seeing the distance between the two of them getting closer and closer, the guy who was on the verge of death just a moment ago seemed to see the hope of survival, and his speed did not slow down but increased instead. In the blink of an eye, the Divine Talisman Realm expert arrived in front of Wu Wei. The moment he got close to Wu Wei, his expression turned ferocious, and he reached out to grab Wu Wei's neck. His move came so suddenly that Wu Wei should not have been able to react in time. However, as soon as he reached out his hand, a dazzling light lit up in front of him. Chapter 114 to 114 Zhang Li's Arrival 1. 114 Zhang Li's Arrival 1. In Li Changqing's office in the Moon Tower outside Yuehua City. Li Changqing was holding a cup of tea, standing by the window of the office and looking in the direction of the crocodile swamp. There was no doubt that the small team in Crocodile Swamp was sent by him. Li Changqing's purpose in sending them out was simple. He wanted to test the waters and see if Wu Wei was really a member of Salvation. If so, that's the best. If not, his men would have tried to persuade Wu Wei with reason and emotions, making him voluntarily assist him in the investigation as bait. If there's such an energy-saving method, I won't be like that stupid woman who doesn't know how to use it. Looking at the time, they should be almost done, right? Well, Li Changqing was right. While he was talking, the matters at the crocodile swamp were almost done. A bright light appeared, and the divine talisman expert who had his hand on Wu Wei's neck was blinded by the light. At the same time, Ah Huang seized the opportunity and violently kicked the divine talisman martial artist. A powerful and heavy kick directly kicked this god talisman practitioner to the ground. At this time, the little fairy also reacted and realized that this guy was a bad person. The little fairy immediately became excited and controlled the soil to control the divine talisman martial artist. Ah Huang placed the knife on the guy's neck. In the blink of an eye, the person who had attacked Wu Wei had been killed. This scene not only stunned the divine talisman expert, but also his 4 teammates who were playing dead. This script was different from what they had expected. According to their script, they were currently disguising themselves as members of Redemption and were about to kill them to silence them. The divine talisman realm expert should have wanted to take down Wu Wei with this attack and then interrogate him. But just as the script started, the play went off course. What should he do now? While the 4 of them were still in a daze, Wu Wei's reaction was rather quick. Run. In the next second, before the 4 people could react, Wu Wei pulled the god talisman expert who had attacked him and ran away. At the same time, Wu Wei activated the emergency signal that came with his Yuehua City token. Not only that, but Wu Wei also threw the high-quality torch talisman into the sky, causing it to emit an extremely bright light. While doing all this, Wu Wei also called Zhang Li's phone. Zhang Li picked up the phone quickly, but because Wu Wei did not call her at the stipulated time, her tone was rather cold. I'll give you 30 seconds to undo. I drew a fine quality torch talisman. Wu Wei obviously knew what to say at this moment. Before Zhang Li could finish her sentence, Wu Wei threw her a sentence. After he said this, the other side fell into a short silence. Wu Wei could even hear the other side's heavy breathing. From her breathing, Wu Wei could roughly guess what she was feeling. It shouldn't have been very calm, but she quickly regained her calm. Where are you? I'm at the crocodile swamp outside the city. An unidentified person attacked me, and I'm on my way to the city. Wu Wei was interrupted before he could finish. Don't hang up, I'll be there immediately. After that, there was no more sound from Zhang Li's end. At the same time, on the other side, the 4 teammates of the divine talisman martial artist looked at Wu Wei pulling the divine talisman martial artist and running away. Their faces were full of f***ing. He had seen people who didn't follow the rules, but he had never seen someone who didn't follow the rules like this. What kind of operation was this to grab someone and turn around to run? And he ran so fast. As they ran, they used all the means they could to ask for help. Looking at the torch talismans that lit up the sky, the 4 people were stunned for a long time before they finally called their superiors. A few minutes later, the burly man came to Changqing Li's office again. Seeing his confidant coming over again, Li Changqing frowned. Is there a problem? Rat Kid grabbed our people and ran away. As he ran, he released a super large distress talisman. Now, almost half of the East Gate has noticed the abnormality over there. Although Li Changqing was prepared to hear bad news when he saw his confidant, he did not expect the news to be so bad. His face turned black on the spot. You're just a failure. Boss, what should we do now? How are we going to clean up after such a huge commotion? What are you afraid of? If the sky falls, I'll hold it up. Li Changqing stood up and walked out of the office. Where are you going, boss? Where to? Where else can I go? What you guys can't do, of course, can only be done by me. Li Changqing walked out of the office and went straight to the east gate of Yuehua City. Li Changqing was not panicking. Now that things had come to this, he didn't think it was a bad thing. In fact, it was an opportunity. A chance to make Wu Wei willingly act as bait. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to handle a mere first-rank freshman. Outside the east gate, where Wu Wei was. To be honest, when he was attacked by the divine talisman practitioner, Wu Wei's feelings were quite nervous and complicated. After he called Zhongli, Wu Wei's nervousness was greatly alleviated. He had to admit that although he didn't have much contact with Zhongli, this woman still gave him a sense of security. However, Wu Wei's sense of security was greatly reduced very quickly. Because in front of him, a person had suddenly appeared out of thin air. This was not the case for Wu Wei. It was a teleportation, but not an ordinary teleportation. It was the teleportation function of Yuehua City. At first, Wu Wei thought that Zhongli was there, but when the person's figure became clear, Wu Wei immediately knew that it was not Zhongli. Although Wu Wei had never met Zhongli before, he was not stupid. He knew that Zhongli was probably a woman. The green-haired man who had suddenly appeared in front of him did not look like a woman. The person who had just teleported over also looked at Wu Wei. His eyes were filled with scrutiny. You're Wu Wei. Wu Wei wanted to move, but a huge pressure fell on his body, making him unable to move. Let me introduce myself. My name is Li Changqing. I am currently the deputy leader of Team 13 of Moon Tower. I am currently in charge of investigating Team 8322's annihilation. The one you're holding is my man. Let him go. Li Changqing's tone was calm, but it was unquestionable. This attitude made Wu Wei furious. Only the heavens knew that when this guy attacked Wu Wei, he had triggered Wu Wei's nerves, which had been especially sensitive since Team 8322 had been here. Wu Wei was only holding back from killing him because he was having a hard time. Now that the other party had come up to him and said that she was his woman, he wanted Wu Wei to let her go. How could Wu Wei tolerate such a casual attitude? Team leader, before I let him go, shouldn't you explain why he attacked me? Because of my order. Because I suspect that you have something to do with the annihilation of Team 8322, because I suspect that you are a member of the redemption team. Do you think that's enough of an explanation? The key question is not whether I think it's enough, but whether you think it's enough. You're the deputy leader of Team 13 of the Bright Moon Hotel. Do you think that's enough reason for you to attack me? I'll say it again, I'm not attacking you, I'm just testing you. You're a suspect, but someone didn't allow us to investigate you through proper channels, so we did this. Since we've already reached this stage, we might as well go through the proper process. As Li Changqing spoke, he took out a token with the word Ming written on it. Student Wu Wei, I'm now summoning you as the deputy team leader of Team 13 of the Bright Moon Hotel. I hope you can help us with the annihilation of Team 8322. I refuse. It could be said that Wu Wei had rejected him without hesitation and without hesitation. Li Changqing was not surprised by this. Thank you for your cooperation. I said reject. Li Changqing interrupted Wu Wei impatiently, you better think clearly before you speak. Do you really think you have the right to reject me? What do you think I'm doing? Don't you know what you're talking about? I'm saving your life, you know that. As he spoke, Li Changqing had already arrived in front of Wu Wei. He grabbed Wu Wei's collar and said word by word, "The annihilation of Team 8322 is related to the Redemption Organization and a conspiracy that might endanger the entire Yuehua city. Now that you're already involved in this matter, do you think you can get away so easily? That's impossible. I'm telling you, you've been targeted by the people from Redemption for a long time. They'll find you sooner or later. What do you think will happen to you then?" At this moment, Li Changqing was not only exerting pressure on Wu Wei with his words, but also on his spirit. The powerful pressure landed on Wu Wei's mind, making it hard for him to breathe. What made Wu Wei even more shocked was that when Li Changqing approached him, his book of runes trembled at the same frequency as when he had encountered the white jade spider pendant. Could he be the mastermind behind this? At this moment, Wu Wei was completely flustered. Just as Wu Wei was panicking, a cold voice rang out. "I don't know what will happen to him, but I do know what will happen to you if you don't take your hand off him." The next second, an unfamiliar figure of Wu Wei came crashing down. Chapter 115 to 115. A genius and a coward are a better match. 115. A genius and a coward are a better match. The crocodile swamp was not far from Yuehua city. A black figure that Wu Wei was completely unfamiliar with descended, stirring up a cloud of dust. After the dust settled, Wu Wei finally saw the black figure's true appearance. This was an extremely oppressive woman. She was wearing a long black robe and was about 1.7 meters tall. Her long black hair was let down without any restraints. She had delicate features and was very beautiful. However, her entire body exuded a bone-chilling aura. Zhongli. Even though he had never seen her before, Wu Wei recognized her immediately. Wu Wei was not the only one who recognized her. Li Changqing, who was holding onto Wu Wei, also recognized her. Li Changqing's expression changed the moment he saw Zhongli. Wu Wei only knew that Zhongli was Zhongli, but Li Changqing knew that Zhongli was the chief disciple of Yuehua City's #1 talisman master, Hu Kaiun. He was known as a super genius who could possibly surpass Hu Kaiun in 10 years. Such a person had appeared here at this very moment. Thinking of what she had just said, Li Changqing's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. He didn't find any connection between Wu Wei and this person. In Wu Wei's information, he was just an ordinary student. If he had found out that Wu Wei had such connections, he would not have dared to be so brazen. But now, what could Li Changqing do? He couldn't give up, so he could only grit his teeth and fight. "Student Zhongli, we're working on a case at the Bright Moon Hotel. Student Wu Wei is related to the annihilation of Team 8322. We need his cooperation in the investigation. Please leave." Before Li Changqing could finish his sentence, Zhongli had already arrived in front of Wu Wei. Seeing Zhongli approaching, Li Changqing subconsciously let go of Wu Wei and retreated. Throughout the entire process, Zhongli did not even look at Li Changqing. Her eyes were fixed on Wu Wei. "Where's the high-quality torch talisman?" Wu Wei was stunned for a moment before he quickly reacted. He took out the last card from his pocket and handed it to Zhongli. "Here." Zhongli took the high-quality torch talisman from Wu Wei's hands and began to study it carefully as if no one was around. She studied it for about 5 minutes. After reading it, she closed her eyes and thought for a while before asking Wu Wei, "How did you draw it?" Before Wu Wei could react, Li Changqing, who was at the side, was already furious. "Student Zhongli, this isn't your talisman. Get lost." Before Li Changqing could finish his sentence, Zhongli swung her hand at him. Wu Wei was dumbfounded. She threw out hundreds of talismans, but not a single one was below level 30. Wu Wei couldn't see the level of the talismans, and their quality was probably not low. How was she throwing a spirit talisman? This was completely throwing money away. Under this terrifying power, Chang Qingli tried his best to resist, but it was useless. He was sent flying and restrained. Zhongli, on the other hand, did not even look at Li Changqing from the beginning to the end, as if she had just done something insignificant. It was like chasing away a bug. Wu Wei's heart surged with excitement at this scene. Two words flashed in his mind: rich woman, thigh. She had to hug him tightly. Thus, Wu Wei began to organize his words. He described how he first copied the torch talisman, and how he drew the fine-grade torch talisman. Here, Wu Wei had to thank some of the spirit talisman's breakthrough methods. They weren't the kind that could be achieved overnight, but rather, they allowed him to overcome them by himself. With this process, Wu Wei had more content to share with Zhongli. Didn't you ask me to digest the study of talisman making in the next few days? After I digested the knowledge I had, I felt that there was no more room for improvement. There were no more books to read, so I thought of buying some runes to copy. I knew that I had a weak foundation, so I chose the torch talisman. I had a weak foundation in this area, and my talent was average. It took me about half an hour to finish copying the first torch talisman. When Wu Wei said this, Zhang Li's mouth twitched. Half an hour to copy the torch talisman. Zhang Li's hands were a little itchy. And then I drew a few more torch talismans. However, as she drew, she felt that the ordinary torch talisman was a little awkward. He felt that he could probably stuff another talisman node inside. Since I had nothing to do, I tried to give it a talisman node. The optimization step is so difficult. I've tried more than 10 positions of the spirit talisman's nodes, and after success, it's also very difficult to outline the lines. It's as if I've failed many times, and it took me a long time to optimize the torch talisman to a high quality. Crack. As soon as Wu Wei said that, he heard a cracking sound, as if something had been broken. Zhongli immediately turned to Li Changqing, who was still under control, and shouted, "Silence! Continue." He turned to Wu Wei. The next step is to draw the high-quality torch talisman, which is even more difficult. I used 2 days, a large notebook, and hundreds of broken talisman papers before I barely succeeded. This is my notebook. As Wu Wei spoke, he took out a notebook and handed it to Zhongli. He did not lie to Zhongli about this. Wu Wei had indeed optimized the high-quality torch talisman on the paper. On one hand, he felt that this way, his brainstorm would be more efficient. On the other hand, he was also prepared to face Zhongli and the professor behind her. Chapter 116 to 116. A genius and a coward are more suitable to. 116. A genius and a coward are more suitable to. Zhongli looked through the notebook that Wu Wei handed over. He was looking at it quite seriously. From this notebook, she seemed to see Wu Wei slowly advancing from a high-quality torch talisman to a fine-quality one. Yes, that's right. Wu Wei felt that the process of upgrading the high-quality torch talisman was quite difficult. However, in Zhang Li's opinion, Wu Wei's progress was extremely smooth. In less than 3 days, he had mastered the drawing of a spirit talisman and pushed the ordinary to the fine grade. This kind of thing was not unprecedented, but at least it was shocking. After reading Wu Wei's notes, Zhang Li couldn't help but sigh. Thinking about herself, how long did she take to master her first spirit talisman? 2 or 3 days. She had already forgotten how long it took, but she clearly knew that it took her half a year to create her first high-quality spirit talisman. This was also because he had a fortuitous encounter and had an epiphany. Her talent was even known as the number 1 in Yuehua City. Compared to Wu Wei, she felt that her talent was not much different from the trash. Looking at Wu Wei and hearing him say things like weak foundation, average talent, and not doing well, Zhongli suddenly understood why her teacher always had a love-hate expression when he taught her. At that moment, Wu Wei looked at Zhongli and sighed, thinking that he had not done it well. He scratched his head and complained in his heart. It's already high quality, and it's still not good. Wasn't the entry requirement a little too high? However, despite his complaints, Wu Wei felt extremely insecure when he encountered such a situation. In order to increase his value, Wu Wei even promised, well, actually, I have some ideas about the superior grade, but I don't have enough knowledge. With my current knowledge, I'm afraid it'll take a long time to get it done. Very long? How long is it? Wu Wei was stunned. He scratched his head and said, 3 months. Then, he saw that Zhang Li's expression was not very good. He thought for a moment and said, there's hope to get it done within 2 months if I work harder. What's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you to keep quiet? Before Wu Wei could finish his sentence, Zhang Li threw another talisman at Li Changqing's head, who was still under control and unable to say a word. The talisman knocked the deputy team leader out. After they were done, Zhang Li reached out her hand to Wu Wei. Let's go back to the city. Return to the city. Wu Wei was stunned. He looked at Li Changqing and then at the divine talisman expert beside him. We're just going like this. Let's just go like this. Zhang Li said as she pulled Wu Wei up. Then, a spiritual talisman lit up in her hand. After that, Wu Wei found himself flying up and slowly floating in the sky. Immediately after, Zhang Li activated another talisman, and then the excitement came. The two of them headed straight for Yuehua City like a sharp arrow. It was an exciting scene. The latter half of Wu Wei's eyes were closed, and his feet were trembling when he landed. After a while, Wu Wei finally recovered and noticed his current environment. He seemed to be on top of a tall tower. He didn't know exactly where it was. At this moment, Zhang Li's voice came from the side, there are books on the shelf, you can read them yourself. I'll get the professor to settle this for you. As Zhang Li was about to leave, Wu Wei quickly stopped her, wait, aren't you going to ask me what's going on? Zhang Li stopped and looked at him. Her meaning was clear. Wu Wei could say it, or he could not say it. Wu Wei mulled it over for a while, organized his thoughts, and then explained it to Zhang Li. Starting from the Dryad Forest, to the Mini Maze Forest, and then to the matter of Team 8322. Of course, Wu Wei did not mention anything about the cheat. After listening to Wu Wei's description, Zhang Li helped him summarize. In other words, you think there is something unusual behind these things, and there might be some big secret or big hand behind it. You're timid and afraid of being involved, so you've been careful. But you didn't expect that the people of the Bright Moon Hotel would still be involved, right? Wu Wei felt that Zhang Li's conclusion was a little off, but he couldn't put his finger on it, so he could only nod. You've been working so hard on the torch talisman all this time, is it also to cling onto the professor and find shelter? Wu Wei hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. Seeing this, Zhang Li suddenly burst out laughing. An ice beauty like her suddenly blossomed into a smile, and at that moment, it was really an incomparable thing. However, what Wu Wei was concerned about was that, what are you laughing at? Do you think I'm too cowardly and not a man? No, I just think that your personality suits you very well. It will let you go very far. A genius and a coward are two attributes that are a perfect match. Maintain it. The corner of Zhang Li's mouth curled up, and she turned to leave. Before she left, she even waved at Wu Wei, don't worry, you don't have to worry about any messy things from now on. Your talent gives you the strongest protection. On the other side, outside the east gate of Yuehua City, Li Changqing, who was under control. A burst of light lit up on his body, and the unconscious man suddenly woke up. When he woke up and saw the person in front of him, his face immediately darkened. It's you. Yes, it is me. Chapter 117 to 117. A genius and a coward are more compatible. 3. 117. A genius and a coward are more compatible. 3. What are you doing here? Are you here to laugh at me? Laugh at you? No, 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 I'm not that bored. I'm here to save your life. Save my life. Li Changqing was stunned. He didn't understand what the other party was saying. What do you mean by that? The other party didn't respond. Instead, he looked in the direction of Yuehua City and narrowed his eyes. Looking at the time, the people from Yuehua City will arrive here in 5 minutes at the latest. These 5 minutes are your last chance. If you want to live, run. What are you talking about? What are you running for? Why should I run away? Li Changqing laughed coldly. Yes, I've really hit a wall this time, but I'm doing this for the safety of Yuehua City. Although my methods may be a little extreme, they'll only give me a little punishment at most. Why should I run? Because you're a member of Redemption. Li Changqing was dumbfounded. He was a member of Redemption? Why didn't he know about it? Wait a minute. Changqing Li suddenly felt his chest heat up. Then, the clothes on his chest were burned dry, and a holy flower tattoo appeared on his chest. The moment he saw the tattoo, Li Changqing's pupils shrank. Saint Lotus Flower. This was the symbol of the Redemption Organization. Those who had this mark were, without exception, mid to high-level figures in the Redemption Organization. At the same time, Li Changqing felt a force pouring into his body from the lotus. The influx of this power caused his strength to soar instantly, and all his attributes were increased by at least 10 points. This was a superior grade existence, a benefit that could only be obtained after dozens of levels. However, Li Changqing, who had obtained this power, was not only unhappy, but also extremely frightened. At the same time, he also reacted and glared at the person in front of him. You're the thief of redemption. Don't talk nonsense. You have the holy lotus flower, but I don't. Isn't it clear who the redemption member is? Hearing this, Li Changqing was so angry that he started bleeding. He crazily erupted the power in his body, wanting to kill this bastard in front of him. As his power burst out, the shackles around him began to break free layer by layer. What he didn't notice was that as he broke free of the shackles, his eyes gradually turned red. When he finally broke free from the restraints, his eyes were already blood red. I want you dead. Li Changqing, with bloodshot eyes, rushed toward the man and thrust his hands in. With a pft, Li Changqing successfully killed the man. Seeing that the guy in front of him had finally died in his hands, Li Changqing's face showed a satisfied smile. However, in the next second, his eyes regained their clarity. Then, he saw that the person who had died in front of him wasn't that person, but his subordinate, the divine talisman expert he had sent to attack Wu Wei. How could this be? Li Changqing's face changed and he wanted to pull his hand out. At this time, he suddenly heard rapid breathing. Li Changqing turned around and saw his 4 men. Seeing this, Li Changqing's eyes turned blood red again. He knew that he had been tricked. He had completely fallen into their trap. Now that he had kicked Wu Wei, who had the Saint Lotus flower, and killed his subordinates in front of everyone, he was basically doomed. Once the people from Yuehua City came, he would not be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Realizing this, Li Changqing's eyes were completely red. Part 5 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.